Welcome to Breakfast Central on a Thursday morning. Yes, that's who you can see there. Yeah, I mean,
live from Lagos,
like they
not in
listened
Abuja.
yesterday and they decided to activate, so they're back. It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back. Like I said when I was signing out yesterday, I said the next time you will see me on television, I'll be broadcasting live from our Lagos studios. And here we are live and direct after 3 days of intense reporting, broadcasting, and facilitating of sessions in the Federal Capital Territory. News Central, of course, was partnering with the Nigerian Economic Summit Group to bring the details and the interviews behind the scenes from the Nigerian Economic Summit Nest 31. The theme this year is the reform initiative, building a Nigeria that is prosperous and inclusive by 2030. And all the conversations that we were having were geared towards and centered around what a picture of a Nigeria that is prosperous and inclusive by 2030 should look like. We did a lot of reflection as to where are we as a nation, what do we need to do to get to 2030, to that desired 2030. And what's particularly exciting for me is how this goal aligns with the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which is also 2030 focused. So it was a great time. Great conversations were had, and it was also a moment for networking. News Central brought some very exclusive interviews, and over the course of the week is almost over.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah, before the week comes to an end.
Today and
tomorrow, we're bringing you some of the excerpts of these very interesting interviews on Breakfast Central as well as in the news bulletin. But it's great to be back. I missed Lagos.
Yeah.
The thing I liked about Abuja, and I always would like, would be their free roads. I don't like their driving though. Their driving is a bit chaotic because it feels like there's too much road.
Too much space, expansion. So they're just. I think they should just have the signs, the lines and everything.
And everybody's just like, I said, wait, I thought Lagos was the mad driving place. Why are you driving like this? I said, nah, I'm not sure I can drive in this Abuja. Everybody's just entering anyhow. But the good thing is, nowhere is far.
Free.
People will say, oh, I'm far. I say, how many minutes? 15 minutes. I say, yeah.
That's far.
15 minutes.
They should see what happened in Lekki Road yesterday.
Please, what was that madness?
Horrible. And I think we're going to resume our call, our advocacy for the governor to actually step up his game.
I had to go on X because what had happened
was a nightmare. From VGC all the way to Jakonde was 3 hours.
God bless you.
A nightmare. So I think we're just going to restart calling on the governor. And maybe you could speak to the commissioner.
What exactly is happening? My question
is, the roads are terrible. The roads are bad.
My driver was going to come and pick me. He then calls me and says that he was walking. I said, walking how? Walking from your house. He said, because all the roads are blocked.
Blocked?
And I said, how? So I went on X and I started checking tweets. And I saw people ranting, saying they had been in traffic from Jakonde to Lekki Phase 1 for almost 3 hours. And people were upset. And Nigerian Lagosians don't deserve this. We don't deserve to live like that.
Some students got to school at during the break. Yes, during the break hours, 11:45, 11:30. They had left home around 7. Some had left home around 8. A parent who I saw on X said she left around 8. I mean, I do have a family member who left home as early as 8. And she only got to Jakonde, I think that was around to 11 or something. She was like, what in the world is going on? So it's chaotic. And it's quite sad that you have Lagos State fixing the Ozumambadi Way stretch only because of the E1 event. And I'm like, why? You shouldn't focus on just one stretch. Rather, you should focus on the entire road. The roads are deplorable. And that's why I keep saying that I think when they say roadworthiness, that particular document should be scrapped. Let me use the word sick for the cars. Because even my car is starting to scream. I'm like, I just changed the shocks. It's gone bad again. So you talk about no way you'll be able to actually put in your best. And that's exactly what people went through. So this is a call to the Lagos State governor. I know you would hear this information. We did this a few months back, and it seems like it worked because your people swung into action. They quickly fixed the potholes, tried to put on the street lights for just 2 days, by the way. After 2 days, the street lights were gone again.
Well, in my own, in defense of them, I was calling them out for that Freedom Way street traffic lights. And thankfully, the traffic light is working now. Now is a good time to jump into fixing the same speed with which we fixed that bridge, the one that, I forgot the name, is it Qatar Bridge?
Yes,
the one that
yes.
Senator what's the Minister of Works name now?
Engineer
Dave Umahi jumped in and ensured that it was sorted out in 24 hours. That same speed should be applied to fix the Lekki-Ajah Expressway.
This morning, they were able to cover one of the big holes at Jakone that's causing everybody to use just one lane. I passed there this morning. Funny enough, whenever I move from VGC lane, as is down to Jakone, it takes me maybe 10, just move. But now, from my place down to the island, at all 1 hour. And I'm like, why? Because not just Olive, it's not just the particular pothole in Jakone.
And you're saying 1 hour is not that you're leaving at 7 a.m.
No,
you're leaving at 5 a.m.
to 5, sometimes 4:55, sometimes 5 on the dot.
Peace of mind won't finish Abuja people.
Come on.
They cannot relate to this.
Come on.
Well, while we are crying about roads here, there's some people who are saying roads are the least of our problems. Senator Garba Musa Madoiki of Kebbi State has called on the Senate to save lives in an emergency plea. He's saying, forget about roads now. Save our lives. Let's take a look at this video.
Tell us they are here. Tomorrow they are here. Everybody knows within our area. But we will not see any action taking place. That is to say, sir, we need this Senate to tell the armed forces to be reporting progress every week so that state by state, otherwise it will be a mess of all issues and we will not be seeing progress. Sir, I beg you that time is right now, that this problem is solvable. We have seen progress. We should not allow this progress to be derailed. We should pursue this remnant of these people so that our next election can be peaceful and sustainable. And we have something to sell to our people, sir. This is the only thing I want to take. If I get protected in my environment, please keep your roads, keep your schools. We just want to be safe. And that is the message we are sending to the Senate President. Please save our life and our people. We are not bothered about roads now or schools. Please save our lives. Our people's lives are in danger.
So this is Senator Garba Musa Madoiki, who's representing Kebbi South Senatorial District, and that was an emotional plea, saying that, of course, criticizing the response to insecurity in the state, and just saying, like he said, they keep your roads, keep your schools, just save our lives. And I don't think, of course, it necessarily meant that, oh, he doesn't want them to do roads, but I think the priority for him there is, before you start talking of people to ply the roads and the people to attend the schools, these people have to be alive first. And the way to preserve their lives is to ensure that you amplify the fight against insecurity.
You know, some days back on this show, we had sat down and we did a priority list. If you remember, we used the board. And we said, if you were to prioritize what is very important that you'd love this government to focus on. And part of it was that infrastructure is good. But you see the issues of hospitals, medical care, and then, of course, security. Security made the top 2 or top 3 lists. What I saw, the video we just saw, is bringing back to my memory the statement that we usually hear, that last, you could touch everybody. And it's touching me already, and I'm sure it's touching you too, because coincidentally, there was a guest who had joined, was it yesterday or so, who joined me, security expert, and he said, listen, all of us, and he said, including me, he said, you know that you are not completely safe. And that's true, whether we like it or not. It's somewhere at the back of our memory that, listen, as I'm going out, I also have to watch over myself and so on. Now, this is a senator in the House of Assembly calling on the president to say, listen, let's have a weekly update on what's happening with our security forces, how they're able to combat this insecurity. And then he's saying that, see, pause, like you rightly also mentioned, pause every other thing, focus. Olive, I cannot help but say it out here. I've been preaching the same thing for the past 1 week. Let us put a state of emergency on security. You've been saying it for more than 1 week. Let us see these kids' gloves. Oh, yeah, you know, you get a report. Oh, the military has been able to restrain, and they were able to, whatever it is, I mean, the statements being used, we congratulate the military. But you see, even the military itself, they also need help. How do I mean? They need everybody's support. This support can come, number one, from the presidency, the government. And the National Assembly should also take note. And that's exactly what the senator is saying, that listen, it's about time. Pause every other thing. We know we thought the roads, I mean, after all, everybody was shouting on your mandate. But now they've seen that, Omo, it's not on your mandate again. No. It's now on your life that you have to stay on. So let's stay alive first, because who is alive will be able to sing on your mandate. And the way it's going is, insecurity case, my fear is it's expanding. Look at the southwest, Olive, the southwest. We used to hear Kwara was where you go to. Now Kwara is not safe. So you see, it's starting to spread. We have the north, far north, you have the southeast, you have the middle belt, you have the southwest. Come on, is it until it engulfs all the states that we're going to call for a state of emergency? The best time to handle it for me is now. So I agree with the senator.
And I hope that his constituents are proud of him. His statements can be interpreted in two ways.
Okay.
The positive side would be that the constituents see him as a voice of advocacy, because there's so much that he can do. There's only so much he can do to combat insecurity. Maybe at the very most, he can wield legislative instrument to mandate the fight against insecurity. But the downside would be politics. If they politicize it and see that this looks like a direct attack on those at the helm of power, at the helm of affairs, if they consider this a direct attack, then it might not look good for him. But whatever the case is, he has spoken truth to power. And it should show the level of desperation for you to get to a point where you're saying to the government, forget about progressive development, forget about the things that would improve the quality of life. You have to have life first before you talk about improving the quality of life. So that's the level of desperation that the senator explains and that he speaks to when he's speaking on behalf of his people. And we hope that the government sees this as a cry for help. Because today is Kebbi, tomorrow it can be any other state. No one is immune.
It's spreading.
Nobody is immune to this if we do not nip it in the bud. I don't know, I think we may be past nipping it in the bud at this point. We're trying our best to contain it. The responsibility of a government is to provide safety and security and to protect the welfare of its citizenry. And any government that hasn't done that has in some huge measure failed. Insecurity and the fight against insecurity is largely linked to a number of things. We, as a nation, Joe, we should have progressed even further than we already have.
Oh, yeah.
If insecurity was not a problem. We shouldn't, it's tied to a lot of things. When we deal with the problem of insecurity, we wouldn't need to, the president will make less trips. He wouldn't need to be traveling around to convince people to come and invest in the country, because they would naturally see Nigeria as a viable place for investment. Two major things, I believe, that we need to focus on. We need to focus on security and we need to focus on power. These two indices, these two factors, once we fix them, with regards to our economy, we would see a great level of improvement in the economy. We will see the numbers, the metrics for indicating the growth. We will start to see transportation, feeding, agriculture. It will spiral. It's a ripple effect rather. So I'm hoping that this cry for help, and that more senators lend their voices to this, more lawmakers, because the everyday citizen, yes, the government hears the everyday citizen, but it signals a different level of concern when the people who are representing, because I think that sometimes lawmakers forget that they're not there as regular everyday politicians. They're there to be, they're like advocates. Yeah. They're just senior advocates of the people.
Of the people.
Yeah. The people voted you in there to advocate, to cry for them. Absolutely. If the people are crying, as a lawmaker, you should be crying times 2. Your voice should be louder. Your voice should be there to amplify the cries of the people. But let's head to X and see what Nigerians are saying about this story, and then we'll come back to take our next story. Kano Blog says, Senator Garba Musa Maidoki has spoken the bitter truth. When human lives are under constant threat, no amount of development can make sense. What Nigerians need right now is security, not empty promises. A government that cannot protect its citizens has already failed in its primary duty. Save lives first. Roads and schools can wait. That's let's take the next tweet.
Next tweet is from Henry MD Don P. It says, speaking as if there is no governor in a state, as a senator representing a part of Kebbi State, how many times have you had a security meeting with your governors, local government chairmen, and traditional leaders to map out security measures to protect your people? Noisemakers. Well, this one is indifferent. In other words, he doesn't care. It says he should go back to his governor. Omotayo Solomon Ayodiji says, a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria says he doesn't want roads or schools. All he wants is to be safe. What is he doing in the Senate in the first place? Question. If you ask me, who I go ask. A talk to Blaya says, the funny part of it is that he wants the lives of citizens to be protected for the purposes of the next elections. We're in serious trouble. Well, you cannot say that because he's not speaking. He didn't mention elections there. He was speaking to reality, and that's the reality on ground. People are no longer safe, and that's why he's speaking out. Well, Mike says, when a senator starts begging like a citizen, you know the system is finished. Power with no purpose is just noise. We also have Katad Nice Guy. It says, Nigerian politicians created problem that is beyond them now. I swear it will take years to solve the problem of insecurity in Nigeria, considering the state of the nation. That's what he says. And let's take this one. Push says, is Nigeria no longer safe? I thought Nuhu said Nigeria is the most safest country. And he laughs. Well, this is way beyond a funny meme. It's actually a serious situation that we're finding ourselves in. Nigeria, safety is a major concern. And if you think it's a lie, well, don't forget there's a big conversation, Olive, that's also going on about the killing of Christians, which has started a different debate on its own entirely. You have the United States wading in, Congress wading in, and then you have Nigeria, the National Assembly also looking to wade in as well, with a few senators saying no, looking to debunk all of that. But whether we like it or not, everything borders on insecurity. If insecurity is not solved, whether we like it or not, we would still go back and forth asking questions. Hence, there's a need for us to really focus on insecurity. Well, talking about insecurity now, let's move to our next story. Our next story has got to do with Pengasin versus Dangote. I'm sure you'll be
maybe we should
it.
do Dangote and NANS
Dangote
versus Pengasin.
Well, I was saying Pengasin and Dangote before NANS now jumped in. Because this rift between Dangote and Pengasin is caused as a result of the fact that Pengasin feels, we're just giving you the summary of the entire story. Pengasin feels all staff, all workers under Dangote must be under the protective laws that governs them as workers, which of course is pushed by Pengasin. By the way, Dangote says, who, in the video where he said, who is Penga? He didn't even know their name. I know that was a bit sarcastic though. But then again, he came out to say, listen, he was going to deal with it. The federal government waded in. They had a conversation with Pengasin and Dangote because Pengasin was looking to go on a full-blown strike, which they started. And that strike, one way or the other, did not materialize because the federal government stepped in and doused the fire. But that's not all. One way or the other, Pengasin now is attributing the high cost of gas to that seemingly small strike that they had. Experts have come out to say that's a big lie. That is just a situation where they're trying to tap in and take the opportunity of ensuring that the gas prices flare. And gas prices have gone up since then. Now, that's not all, Olive. You see, this story has different layers. I'm just trying to sum everything up. Dangote said, okay, fine. If you want me to move these workers to be members of a union like Pengasin, I know what to do. Dangote now removed all of them and moved them to sugar and salt factory, still under Dangote. So we have people go and work there. And then he's going to put new people again. So you see, this fight is not going to stop anytime soon. However, NANS, like you mentioned, decided to jump in yesterday. National Association of Nigerian Students. And this jumping in, they say enough is enough. Who are they supporting?
They are supporting Dangote.
They say, Pengasin, who you be, from where?
Why is Pengasin trying to slow down the economy? According to NANS, they believe that Pengasin is working against the interest of the everyday Nigerians. Pengasin, on the other hand, also accused Dangote of firing about 800,000 workers, and saying that they're replacing these people with foreign nationals. And Dangote is saying, that this is not true, that they're just sort of making malicious statements to put Dangote in bad light. So it's been back and forth. They've had meetings with government, the federal government wading in. Sometimes the meeting has ended in deadlock and they've picked up again. But NANS has said, we no go agree, or we no go agree. At Ojodu Bega, you can see the clips of them. Let's take a look at this video and we'll come back to share our thoughts.
The leadership of the National Association of Nigerian Students, a body known for always fighting for equality, freedom and social justice, has once again trooped out in mass to declare to the world that Nigerian students are saying a total no to the importation of fuel in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We are saying no to the sabotaging of Dangote as a personality, as well as other refineries in Nigeria. We are here to say enough is enough. We are here to say no to some unscrupulous elements pitching tents with the opposition to create problem for the incumbent leadership of His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a man that is performing across border, a man that is doing the impossible for the ungrateful Nigerians, a man that has dedicated his life towards the upliftment of Nigerians. Today we are here to say no to sabotaging positive government moves towards ending the suffering and poverty of Nigerians. Today, we are here to say that a little thing is a little thing, but faithfulness in a little thing is a great thing. Dangote has gone a long way in reducing the price of PMS in Nigeria. Why are some people trying to sabotage that effort? Why are some people trying to bring Nigeria to dismay? Why are some people trying to set us apart? Why are some people trying to divide Nigeria for political gains? We are here to say no, and enough is enough. Nigerian students are saying yes and supporting Dangote.
Joe, why do you have that facial expression? Why are you not making me laugh?
You know, there was a guy by the right. If we play back that video, there was a guy by the right while he was talking on your screen. That guy wearing face cap, the blue.
The blue face cap guy.
He's sleepy. Look at his eyes. Look, watch him. See, look, the guy. Look at some point. He's gonna just go. He's tired. Because he's tired. Look at that guy.
Is he really sleepy, or he's just
tired.
wondering like, guy, who's saying,
he's just gonna.
Is this why we are here?
The guy is wondering what's going on here.
Question here. We can see them in lovely Dangote branded caps, Dangote branded T-shirts. I wonder what time they had to really, go and brand these T-shirts and brand these face caps to come and support Dangote. How did they, or was it given to them by the Dangote group? 1. 2, waiting concern NANS inside this matter. And I'm not saying that as Nigerians, they don't have a right to have an opinion.
Of course.
But there's currently an issue. ASUU and, ASUU is planning to go on a warning strike from October 13th. Their issue is the renegotiation of the agreement to the federal government in 2009, the renegotiation and implementation of same. Why are you not? This is literally a case of drinking Panadol for another person's headache. That's what it is.
Protesting for that.
The students have a lot of problems on their hands. Have you been able to stand your ground and shut down whatever you need to shut down to get the government to listen to you on that? No, it's Dangote's business that you decided to carry on your head. It's giving politicized. It's
giving adjustment schemes, It's giving some form of let's sponsor some people. And I wish that... We don't know where the sponsorship is coming from.
I don't know.
But it doesn't
I wish that bodies like the Nigerian Association of, National Association of Nigerian Students know how much power they wield. When I was in school, I was in politics. The influence of the student union government is powerful.
Yeah.
You stand in a position of authority to influence change among the students with the management, the administration of the school. And now, the national body, which is NANS, you can really hold the government to account. You can hold them, you can stand still. Your right, and your duty and your responsibility is to protect the interests of Nigerian students.
Absolutely.
Simple. That is your primary responsibility, to protect the interest of Nigerian students.
Well, they'll tell you that they're protecting the interests of Nigerian students because when fuel prices go up, the students will find it hard commuting, going to school, coming back.
The very immediate danger that the students are facing right now is the potential of going on another strike.
That's it.
October 13th is around the corner.
That's it.
That's the deadline that they had given to the federal government.
So misplaced priorities, hence why we say we do not understand the mix between having National Association of Nigerian Students jumping into a fight which is already being settled by the federal government and still involves Dangote and Pengasin. But then again, it is Nigeria, it is what it is. We do understand that everyone has a freedom of expression. But then again, it makes us wonder if the National Association of Nigerian Students should have focused on the impending strike.
The last thing I'm seeing here is from a month ago, 26th of August, where I'm seeing that the National Association of Nigerian Students has threatened to shut down critical infrastructure nationwide if the federal government fails to meet the demands of ASUU, which has again warned of a possible nationwide strike. They said, let it be on record. If this strike is not averted, we will bring the country to a standstill until the future of Nigerian students is secured.
Why are you trying to say? You're almost trying to sound like that guy. Almost. I know the ginger, the energy.
He's giving cho.
And in his statement, he said President Tinubu has done a lot for the ungrateful Nigerians. And I'm like, wait, ungrateful? Who wrote that speech? Sometimes when you want English, too much grammar.
That's why I say it's cho.
Ungrateful Nigeria, cho. Oh my goodness, this morning I want to take it easy, please. So Nance, well done. We appreciate what you're doing. I mean, you're standing firm. You have your principles. You do have your freedom of speech. But then again, we also say while you're doing that, it's fine. Don't forget to remember that there are students who may be at home for a long period of time when ASUU, NASU, SANU all go on strike. So you might want to also, maybe this time remove that shirt, wear a different shirt, and go back to the streets to ensure that all is done appropriately. But then again, the Minister of Education has begged. There was a press conference yesterday. He begged and asked that ASUU should please relax. This is the first time in a long while the President Tinubu administration, the Renewed Hope agenda, is focused on ensuring that there will no longer be strikes. And how are they doing that? They're involving the Ministry of Justice and everything because they want to have a proper documentation and signatory done to avert any form of strike in the future. And they're going to ensure that they listen to their demands this time because that's what they've been doing. They just want to ensure that it's done properly. And this is the first time they're also involving the National Security Advisor and so on. That it's never been done before. It shows the great length that the president wants to go to. Will ASUU listen? That one is left for ASUU to decide. Period. Okay.
Do we have time for the final story?
Well, not really, but I think we can just touch on it very briefly. It's just an announcement that we need to make.
I think the quick summary will be that the Senate is backing a 10-year passport ban on Nigerians convicted abroad. So what that will mean is that if you are a Nigerian abroad that has been convicted for a crime and deported back home, once you get home, they would you have a passport, a 10-year passport ban, and the aim of doing this they're saying is to preserve the integrity of Nigeria, to discourage Nigerians from committing crimes abroad, and just basically to redeem and restore the image of Nigeria on the international scene. But before we share what our thoughts are, let's quickly head to X and see what Nigerians are saying about this on X. So now, committing a crime abroad could cost you your freedom and your passport for a decade. Interesting move, but will this really reform behavior or just punish Nigerians twice? International image matters, yes, but is this the right tool to achieve it? They should rather address the root of the problems rather than this approach. That's the one. The second one, don't we have currently 7 Nigerian leaders who have been convicted abroad? The ban should begin with those individuals known to the public or not. The next tweet says, brilliant move. It's hard to give directions to a grown human, but if they have something to lose, they'll think twice before committing that crime. Brilliant. Another tweet says, 10-year passport ban, shock emoji. So if someone has served time abroad, comes home and tries to rebuild, they'll still be locked out from global opportunities. Yes, I understand actions have consequences, but shouldn't rehabilitation be part of the equation too? That's that tweet.
Yeah, I mean, let's take this one. Kelvin says, this is a good move, but it should largely depend on the kind of crime committed. The Nigerian police should also conduct a proper investigation to determine whether the person is actually guilty or not. Why did I say this? Because laws differ from country to country. For instance, violence against women can send you to jail in many countries, but it only attracts a fine here in Nigeria. Some rape cases abroad are just charades, full of lies against successful men simply to extort money from them or punish them for daring to leave the relationships. So why should a person suffer innocently abroad, get deported, and then continue to suffer for another 10 years here? This is a very salient point, I agree, because it needs to be looked into. But I'm sure the Senate know what they're doing. They would put all of these ideas and all of these suggestions into book and look at it carefully. For instance, somebody who has been wrongfully convicted abroad. That's what this Kelvin is saying. And what if after they found out that he was wrongfully convicted, maybe he spent 2 years in prison or jail and then he was finally let go, and then he returns back to Nigeria? Of course, he will still have that convicted.
So it's like double jeopardy. You're being
exactly.
punished
You're still going
twice.
to convict him, or you would say, okay, you know, what did he commit over there? Oh, it was a lie, so on. Anyway, there's a lot. But we trust that the Senate know what they're doing. And if you ask me, I'd say it's a good move. However, Olive, I hope it would apply to the politicians too.
Bam.
Nobody should be exempted.
Anointing flows.
And you know, as we speak now, currently there's a politician, 1 or 2 or 3, including those who are, there's a royal highness or someone who is facing issues abroad now, currently.
But the laws they won't be, what's that word, I've forgotten, but like it won't go back in time. Once if there's a law that is passed to that effect, it would only start from the moment that it's passed.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
It won't go back in time.
But you know whether you like it or not, we're humans. And whether you are of the upper echelon, some of them will still break the law.
Yeah.
Let's hope that they are not going to be separated.
Maybe we should leave this
special.
for our viewers to decide. Yeah. What side of the divide. Do you think that this is going to be a good move? Just to quickly talk, you can go on YouTube. We're streaming live on News Central, and you can drop your comments there. Do you think that it's a good move to preserve Nigeria's image in the global space and to protect our integrity, that the Senate passes a law, for example, to ban convicted record criminals? It feels weird to say that, but people who have been convicted of crimes upon their return to Nigeria to seize their passport for 10 years. You think that's a good move? Thank you, Mokunye Chukwuemeka. It's great to see you. We're seeing the shout out online. Thank you very much for that. Mokunye Chukwuemeka says, hearing the word is the roadworthy of our car for the obtained time in 24 hours. We pay taxes, and then he says, in quote, wonderful speech by NANS guy. Nigerians are ungrateful. That is the sarcasm of the highest level. You did not tell us that you're very fluent in sarcasm, Chukwuemeka. Anyway, but you can let us know what your thoughts are on any of these stories that we started the conversations with this morning on the Wake Up Conversations. We're streaming live on YouTube, News Central TV. Let's now share with you the headlines and the stories that we're bringing to you today on Breakfast Central. This morning on Breakfast Central, we'll be starting off by talking about achieving a progressive, inclusive fiscal economy. We spoke with the executive chairman of the Fiscal Policy Commission. Embattled Minister Uche Nnaji resigns amid certificate forgery allegations. We started this and we'll continue the conversations today. Beyond appointments, evaluating ministers in office, the ministerial scorecard. 3 days of ideas, one agenda for action. We bring you a holistic report of the Nigeria Economic Summit 2025. And we'll review the newspaper front pages with our guests and with you when we open the phone lines. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, at the beginning of the show today, I mentioned to you, of course, we've been following up with the Nigeria Economic Summit, and I said to you that we had some very exclusive interviews touching on very important conversations. Now, this one we're about to bring to you, we looked at what it will take to achieve a progressive, inclusive fiscal economy, which is, of course, centered around the theme, building a progressive and inclusive Nigeria by 2030. We're joined by the Executive Chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, Victor Morocco, and that interview will be brought to you right now. still live at Nest 31, where the Nigeria Economic Summit is focused on having conversations about building a prosperous and inclusive Nigeria by 2030. We're now joined by the Executive Chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, Mr. Victor Muraku. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon.
It's great to have you. Let's get into the theme. Basically, everyone is looking towards 2030. We're looking at what we can do. What role would you say the FRC has to play in ensuring that we achieve that goal of an economically advanced and inclusive Nigeria by 2030?
Thank you for having me, New Central. I'm pleased to even get to know about New Central. First, not what Fiscal Responsibility Commission FRC is going to do. We should be talking about what we're already doing. Principally, Fiscal Responsibility Commission is a creation of Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. We've done a lot. The idea behind it is to strengthen accountability, fiscal prudence, management of every resources of the nation. As we speak, it has not been easy, but we've done a lot. What was it like before this time? You must have listened to His Excellency, Mr. Vice President, speaking on the current trend and where we are economically. There have been a lot of improvements, but we are not yet there. Talking about what we are doing for now, we've strengthened revenue base of the federal government. What did we do? We ensured that those agencies, before this time, government-owned enterprises that were not remitting rightly, we tried to get them to now do what they're supposed to do. We are not yet doing exactly that, but it's a work in progress. There have been a lot of improvement. If you listened, you heard when Mr. Vice President spoke about the revenue targets that have been met. We are working with the federal government, ensuring that those independent revenue of the government that are being in arrears are remitted. A lot of the agencies are complying, but a lot are yet to come to the party. Apart from that, it's also part of our mandate to look at what releases, those funds that were released to agencies, what they are doing with it, transparency, accountability, and fiscal prudence. We ensure, we go on monitoring to ensure that all those funds released by the Budget Office of Federation are properly accounted for. With the instrument of quarterly release of budget implementation report, which will work with Office of Budget of the Federation and the Accountant General, we'll check some of those releases, particularly as to capital. Yes, there have been a lot of challenges in the capital releases, no doubt, but we'll get back on it because with the quantum of revenue that are now coming in, I'm very sure that all those challenges will be resolved. Going forward, Fiscal Responsibility Commission will be up to its game. We'll up our game. We're sure that all funds due to the federal government, particularly the independent revenue, and even other sources, are reported as at when they are remitted, duly remitted. And we're working very closely with the National Assembly, particularly the Committees on Finance, Public Accounts Committee, and the Office of Budget of Federation, Accountant General, Auditor General, where agencies who before this time were not properly submitting what they are supposed to pay. We all now work together as a team to ensure they are accounted. That's part of our contribution, and we're going to do much more of that.
Right. I mean, great job, well done with all you've done so far. But I still want to, dial back a bit to still talk about some of the challenges that you had mentioned. Yes, you said we're not yet there, but you had been, flagged to have mentioned the fact that the federal government has been averaging about 43% revenue shortfall as opposed to the projection. What would you say are some of the causes that have led to this revenue shortfall? I know that you've mentioned that we're making progress, but I think that's also important for us to know what may have been the causes of the challenges we've had to deal with, even as we, advance towards solutions.
The challenges are obvious. They're out there in the public space first and foremost. Some of the revenue targets are not being met due to part of it, mainly insecurity. Then Of course, you must have known that our production have obviously increased because of the seeming improved stability. You can see that our production have improved from what used to be from 1.6. We're now netting about 1.8, and we're heading to 2.1 million before the end of the year. That is a critical factor, that our production level have really increased, and we need to do much more. You know, the more we have security, we have a stable security environment, the more our production in the oil industry moves, and even in agriculture. These are the key areas. A lot of this revolve around security. And you can see that Mr. President and the government are really paying a lot of attention to security situation. For me, I identify security as one of them. Then we cannot rule out our attitude as Nigerians, what it used to be in the past. Before this time, a lot of public service agencies, often necessarily, don't always pay attention, take seriously issues of revenue remittances to government. They've always taken it as business as usual. But because our commission and other stakeholders have upped our game to ensure that we're on them, to ensure that they remit as and when due, there have been a lot of these, some of the challenges. The public officials before this time were not seeing issues of payment of revenue to government as something they can take very seriously, but not because of the consequences. And that leads us to consequences of infraction on the law on this. And that is why we're pushing for the amendment of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Because
in support of those who are calling for the amendment, because they're saying that the powers that the Fiscal Responsibility Commission have to implement discipline or enforce, that is limited, and they've been asking for the review of the act. I wanted to ask your thoughts on that as well.
I totally agree, and I've called for it, and I'm using this opportunity to re-emphasize it, that the commission needs to be strengthened by strengthening the act. An act that you have about 53 offenses without a clear punishment or sanction. All that we've been able to do is try to see how we can use rules like producing the template for calculation of operating surplus, which will now insist on what is allowable expenditure and disallowable expenditure. But this cannot be enough. There is need to amend the law so that if you are violating the law, you will obviously be reading the consequences so that you know what you will face. So I think there is no gainsaying that the act needs to be strengthened, because if you obviously do that, the compliance level will quite scale up. And we Nigerians, particularly the public officials, we always very cautious so that we don't get our names indicted by the law. But if there is no sanction, we'll take it for granted that it's business as usual. That's also the point. If not for the efforts, the collaborative efforts of our commission and the Office of Accountant General, Budget Office of Federation, and the National Assembly, the much we've done, we couldn't have done. Right. But this cannot be a replacement for providing the much needed sanctions in line with the law.
Right. Sanctions aren't the only thing that would guarantee enforcement, right? They are very important. But transparency is also a key point, which you've highlighted earlier in this conversation. So what metrics, are we using currently to measure the level of transparency, or what systems have been put in place to guarantee transparency on the part of the institution, on the part of the government, to ensure that, citizens are carried along in the process?
Well, Fiscal Responsibility Act is one special law in Section 51 of Fiscal Responsibility. It expressly created that citizens, every citizen of the country, that you have the right to question any action under the Act and by necessary implication, even the Appropriation Act, to question any action taken without necessarily obtaining any prerogative order of court. What am I saying? What I'm saying is that Section 51 of the law outside the doctrine of local standard, that even you can question actions of government under the law. So there are a lot of metrics in the sense that, but just that citizens are not taking that opportunity. Citizens have been very, would I say, laissez-faire attitude about it.
Do you blame them?
Why not? Why? The law have helped us. Before we were saying there was no law to back citizens' right. Even the Freedom of Information Act have also strengthened us. Then again, the commission is also, they are available. We're also receiving citizens complaining on infractions on the law, and we're taking them very seriously. So I think we have opportunity as citizens, just that we're trying to make a lot of citizens awareness to sensitize citizens on the need to do more, because like we're talking about, even more revenue without citizens' participation will not really create a lot of difference. There's really that need for citizens to take more interest in what we do as public officials. And I think there's a lot of improvement on that, and that is why you're seeing that our economy is also improving.
All right, thank you very much for speaking with us today. As we wrap up the conversation, although I think I already know what your answer is going to be, what is the one reform you would like to see by 2030?
Well, great one. I would say that the present government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been a very great reform government. By the way, I'm still a member of the Presidential Fiscal and Tax Reform Committee, and also the Implementation Committee. You know, one of the greatest gifts of this government, though citizens don't seem to understand it, most of us, the truth is that the new tax laws are one of those gifts this administration have given to Nigerians. We will only remember it at the end, when President Tinubu must have served out his tenures, as the case will be. One of the greatest gifts going forward, apart from that, if you ask me, and sincerely, is for the government to dutifully implement the 4 new tax laws to the letter. If it's done, Nigeria will be a different nation. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry of this nation will be more responsive and responsible to our civic duties, not only to payment of tax, but also to living a fiscally responsible lifestyle. It won't be a business as usual. Whatever expenditure you're incurring, you must make sure that it's worth the while. And as you're spending, obviously you know that you owe the government your civic responsibility of paying your tax. It's not only for the common man. This tax is even more friendly to the common man on the street. But it's to everybody, even Mr. President. By the time he leaves office, he will be subject to the new tax laws. And all of us, and even you too. I think that would be one of the greatest legacies of this government, comprehensive implementation of the new tax laws.
And to whom much is given, much is expected. Because as the citizens will be gladly paying these tax, and you know, these new tax laws will be implemented, we're looking forward to seeing the return in the increase of the quality of life the citizens will live. Okay. I mean, that's the major thing that citizens speak to when we speak about the tax laws.
Like during the process of when the laws were bills, as it then was, a lot of people engaged us on the issue that it's not just paying taxes. It's not asking citizens to pay taxes. Will they get value? I can tell you citizens will get value. They're already getting value. One of the biggest value they will get is that the government will become more participatory, be in a better position to ask questions. And the laws are there for you to take benefit of them. And I'm sure with the kind of government we have, with the kind of projects and reforms that are already on, I think citizens will obviously be better for it going forward. Thank you.
The argument has been whether service precedes tax or tax should precede service, but that again feels like the chicken and the egg conversation argument in 30 seconds.
I will tell you the truth.
Go ahead.
Tax, because you have to pay. Then you get the service. Not just the service, you have the locals to ask questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Victor Moraku, Executive Chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission. We'll continue to have conversations here at Nest that you want to stay with us. That was wow, I just saw myself on screen. Yeah. A detailed conversation there with Mr. Victor Moraku, who's the Executive Chairman, Fiscal Responsibility Commission. We're talking about, the role of FRC as well as Nigerians and how we can hold the government to account. But that's one of the interviews. We have a highlight of what the 3 days look like, and I think that is important that we share that as well.
Yeah, I mean, after 3 days of intense public-private sector dialogue in Abuja, the 31st Nigerian Economic Summit has come and gone. I'm sure you would like to know what was discussed, the highlights, and the key address, especially the keynote addresses. Participants and stakeholders also who attended agree that Nigeria's economic reforms must now move beyond stabilization to deliver real impact on citizens. After all, Nigerians are asking, we need to see clear evidence that what is being done from the top, which is governance, can reflect heavily on our pockets and our livelihoods. But Joshua Marai has this report for us, so let's take a look.
From October 6 to 8, government officials, policymakers, business leaders and development partners converged for the 31st Nigerian Economic Summit on national dialogue themed the reform imperative, building a prosperous and inclusive Nigeria by 2030. Opening the summit, Chairman of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Olani Yusuf, set the tone, insisting that the time has come for Nigeria to act with urgency and purpose.
For Nigeria, these are moments of renewal, our chance to act with integrity, with urgency, and with inclusivity. Globally, the global environment is shifting. Growth is slowing, protectionism is rising, and geopolitical tensions are redrawing trade patterns. Development aid is shrinking as advanced economies battle fiscal pressures and aging populations. For Nigeria, the message is clear. External support will be limited. We must rely on resilience, reforms, and the discipline to attract investment, both domestic and foreign, and also to build credibility.
Vice President Kashim Shettima, representing President Bola Tinubu, reaffirmed government's commitment to restoring confidence and deepening collaboration with the private sector.
A debt of gratitude for staying with us through turbulent tides, for providing insights, for offering criticisms, and for reminding us that our collective goal is not comfort in divergence, but progress in convergence. Whatever our differences, we are bound by the same destination, the duty we owe our people.
On day 2, discussions focused on accountability and fiscal discipline. The Emir of Kano, Muhammad Sanusi II, commended ongoing reforms but warned that policy inconsistency remains a major barrier to progress.
So take fiscal policy. We have improved revenues. Great. The revenue to GDP ratio has gone up. The debt service coverage has moved up. The deficit is down to 3% of GDP. These are fantastic. On the revenue side, we've done well. How about the expenditure side? The cost of governance, the quality of spending at both federal, state, and local levels. Are we getting value for money for the road contracts we're doing? For the capital projects we're doing? Are we still spending money through the National Assembly? Are we still doing constituency projects? Where are they going to?
By day 3, the conversation expanded beyond Nigeria's borders, exploring regional collaboration as the next frontier for growth across Africa. As deliberations ended, participants called for decisive implementation to move Nigeria from talk to tangible results. With the lights dimmed on NES 31, one message resonates clearly. Reform momentum must not fade. It must translate into shared prosperity, sustainable jobs, and inclusive growth. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Well, 3 days packed all in one. That's exactly what it was. But Olive is here with me, so I think Olive will be our in-house reporter to explain to us what really happened at the NES. So I'm going to start off first by saying 3 days back to back.
Thank you very much for that question.
3 days. 3 days back to back. Yourself, Benga, and the team. The MD was also there, Mr. Kayode Akintemi, the MD and the editor-in-chief of News Central. The conversations, what was quite different from this year compared to last year? And then I did see also a remark touted by experts online saying that every year experts will sit together with government. It's a case of the private sector, the government, and the people, the three tiers coming together to proffer not just solutions, but to look into the future. It's now 2030, right?
So we have 5 years. So literally, I feel like this year was a 5-year plan.
Good.
That's what this year was, a 5-year plan. But beyond that, when we talk about how different this year was from last year, I would say, first of all, in terms of organization, this year was way better, right? It was better organized, which is a good thing because you never want to ever say last year was better organized than this year. This year was better organized. The crowd was better. We started much earlier.
On time.
Yes, we
I
started
noticed when I was talking to you yesterday.
Yes.
It was scheduled 9:30. And
the hall was already full.
Yeah.
You know, in one of the breakfast sessions that I was facilitating, when it was getting to the time, they came to me and said, you need to wrap up. We need to set up the hall for one of our sessions. So I want to applaud the team. Great job to the NESG team for how organized they were this year. People also showed up from outside the country in terms of networking. I personally made more contacts among networks at this year's NESG than I did last year.
Nice.
There were more people who were there, people who flew in from outside the country, a lot of people. And I remember speaking to someone from Uganda. She was saying that about how she wishes they could replicate something like this and how she thinks that it was so insightful for her, you know, to be a part of the conversation.
So she could talk to the NES team. I'm sure they'll be,
I'm sure that that's
more
something
than
that they can
happy
explore.
to do that for Uganda as well.
Yes, yes, we heard from government, we heard from private sector. I particularly enjoyed the session that Mr. Taiwo Yedele had granted, where they talked about the tax reforms, and it was moderated by Joyce Daniels, who did a great job comparing and moderating the sessions. And it was a very insightful conversation. She went in deep, broke it down, you know, the fears of this tax, you're saying you're trying to make everything into one unified platform. What happens if tomorrow someone goes to FIRS and they say, you are speaking English, or we don't understand what you are saying, you pay another money here, you know, and then he's trying to allay those fears and say, no, we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's. And also, I think that the CEO breakout sessions, I really liked them because what that did was it afforded everybody the opportunity to be a participant. You know how you go for conferences and there's somebody or a select number of people who will speak. What those breakout sessions did was it was a breakout session that had further breakout sessions. In the breakout session that I was handling, I moderated, the theme was setting a national productivity growth agenda. And in that breakout session, we had 5 table discussions, 5 group discussions. Each of these groups, everybody had to speak. They had a topic under the main theme, and they all had contributions to make. And then each of them had to select a representative. Then I facilitated a presentation. So each of the representatives came out to address the audience. In that way, everybody is a part of the decision-making process. Everybody is a part of the solutions preferring methods. And then everybody gets to benefit from the final takes of every table. So it was a very insightful conversation. And all these solutions that have been proffered should not just end at policies. I think the most important thing is implementation. They have suggested ways in which we should implement. By next 32, we hope to have seen a huge leap from where we are today, you know, to see that a number of the suggestions that have been made are implemented. So kudos, and I must especially applaud the New Central team. The New Central team in Lagos.
You guys did fantastically
well. The New Central team in Abuja. New Central did a fantastic job of doing the major covering of the Nigeria Economic Summit. And, you know, I would say that speaks to our forward-thinking abilities to see opportunities, to see the stories that need to be told, and to go where the story is really. So kudos to our team, to our MD, Mr. Kayode Akintemi, and the entire team, because it was stressful.
It is.
It is a very stressful endeavor. Very stressful.
Yeah.
but it was worth it.
It's worth it. And I mean, well done. Kudos to you guys.
And kudos to you too,
yeah,
for holding it down from, the Lagos studios as well, because it's not like we were working and you came here to sleep.
Yeah, no.
To you, to the entire team in Lagos.
Things happen from behind the scenes. The conversations we have online. I think it's a good way. It's a parting shot for us here. That's why I'm having this conversation to the NES team. I think it's worth it, whether they like it or not. If there's any iota of thought that, are you sure this thing we've been doing for over, this is NES 31 years. Do you think we should eventually just let it cool off? They shouldn't, because we can see the impact already. It's also in the NES day one, in the opening speech by the vice president, talking about Senator Kashim Shettima, where he had talked about Pengasin and Dangote, of which Pengasin now responded to him in that statement he made. And he made a very strong statement. And if you really look at it, Nigeria is bigger than
a body.
So the body should, if you have issues, the federal government has stepped in like a father and said, come, Dangote, come, Pengasin, let's sit down, let's talk. And they were able to resolve, although Pengasin still feels that the resolution was not enough, that there's still a lot to be done. And now we're seeing multiple bodies trying to jump into the ring and put on their gloves and also engage in fisticuffs, not physical, but of course, fighting for how the economy should go. One big thing I also liked about the NES this year was that I liked the array of speakers. I saw different speakers, different people, and that's what they do every year. And I like that you have people who have different opinions on issues. And what that does for an economy is that it helps people to broaden their landscape, their mindset, to understand that, oh, wait, this is really good. I like the fact that we also got the former CBN governor who had spoken, not because we haven't gotten him before, but it's based on what he spoke about. Talking about how he was sacked because he revealed there was a loophole in how Nigeria's economy was going, especially with how, money was being moved. That was an expose for me. And I said, okay, so the question is, what is the focus? What's the security opportunities made for whistleblowers? If somebody that was right there in an administration could speak up, because he had power, the CBN governor is very powerful, and yet they found a way to tell him, you have to leave. How much more of another person who would come there and try to do things? But then again, these are just our highlights of the NES, and Olive was there, Benga was there. Benga will possibly share his own highlights tomorrow.
I really can't wait for us to bring some of the interviews that we had done behind the scene. There was a particular report by Dr. Wilson. Dr. Wilson is a researcher at the NESG, senior researcher at the NESG as well. And they were talking about productivity. When we're looking at our current productivity rate, they were talking about how our problem isn't necessarily about they were looking at how to incorporate the informal sector, young people, employment rate. So they're not covering it up. Part of the conversations where they're exposing things as they are, speaking to positives, but also speaking to the areas that need a lot of work. Two interviews I particularly enjoyed, minus the one that we played today. I enjoyed all of them, but the interview with Basil Abia. Basil Abia is also a senior researcher, and he was speaking to data. He was speaking to the fact that we maybe now need to have, beyond the National Bureau of Statistics, maybe we should now have these different states have their own individual Bureau of Statistics to help with data calculation.
That makes sense.
He talked about, now he looked at the agri sector and gave some very interesting facts as to where we are in terms of productivity and how some countries are doing better than us. Like we're not talking about comparing ourselves with the West. In Africa, you look at how much it is we're producing in certain areas. Of course, when there is no power, post-harvest loss is an issue. It affects insecurity is an issue. It affects how much we're able to produce. So we're not doing as well as some of our African counterparts. And then he made suggestions. Geospatial lighting. There were so many suggestions that had been made as to how we can improve our numbers. But we'll bring you these updates and these reports shortly.
That's right.
But we'll now move to
let's go to the academic issues. Let's talk about the 2-week ultimatum that has been issued by the Academic Staff Union of Universities. The federal government has actually met with the association to discuss terms on unresolved issues. Now, the Minister of Education, Tuja Lausa, during a press briefing at the ministry's headquarters in Abuja, urged the union to please exercise patience as government is making efforts to ensure that promises made to the union are fulfilled. Take a look.
president is meeting all the commitments, all the promises to the unions. Your promotion areas, the issues have been resolved. We've spoken to the DG budget. Issues have been resolved. By next year, in 2026, all areas will be paid, including the 25-35 wage award. The issues of other allowances, teaching allowances and all those have all been paid. We've resolved a lot of these issues, but we know the final part is the condition of service. We will resolve that as well. So we're pleading with the unions, both academic and non-academic unions at a tertiary institution, to be patient.
So ASUU, just be patient. Let's wait for that response, and hopefully the patience will take enough time to allow the federal government to implement all its plans to boycott any form of strike whatsoever. If you're watching Breakfast Central, we thank you so much. Stay with us. The next hour is indeed loaded, but let's bring you a quick recap of some of the big stories we've had this hour as we go into the second hour right away. So far, so good. We've talked about the NAS 31 day 1 to 3 in review. We have a lot to talk about it, so stay with us. The highlights as well on what was said from the former CBN governor, of course, to the minister, and so much. And then federal government meets with ASUU. You just saw that, and they're pleading, give us more time to implement all the plans that we have in place. But let's bring you what's coming up next. Coming up next on Breakfast Central. Uche Nnaji resigns. Yes, that was yesterday, but guess what? We have an inside story on that. We'll be talking about it in a moment. We'll also look at a review of the minister's scorecard. Remember, we're counting down. It's almost 3 years. And Nigeria exits economic instability. Good news or bad? Stay with us. Welcome back. Yesterday, we started conversations on the resignation of Nigeria's Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology. I'll talk about Mr. Geoffrey Nnaji from President Bola Tinubu's cabinet amid controversies around his academic records and allegations of certificate forgery. Now, Nnaji, who was appointed in August 2023, announced his resignation in a letter to the president on Tuesday, expressing appreciation for the opportunity to serve. Confirming the development in a statement on Tuesday, a special advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Nanuga, said President Bola Ahmed Tinubu accepted the resignation of Geoffrey Uche Nnaji, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, following some allegations against him. President Tinubu appointed Nnaji again, if you recall, early in August 2023. Now, this isn't just about one man. It's actually about the integrity of our institutions, the credibility of our vetting processes, and the accountability of those who serve.
Joining us this morning for today's conversation is a legal practitioner, Liberus Oshoma. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good.
So maybe we'll start first of all by saying, I don't know, I'm sure you saw the response of the presidency saying that they accepted his resignation. Let's get your thoughts to the acceptance of his resignation.
That letter by Bayo Nanuga further diminish and destroys the perception of the presidency by just accepting and wishing him well in future endeavors. Forgery is a criminal offense punishable under section 462 of the Penal Code and section 362 to 364 of the 462 of the Criminal Code and 362 to 364 of the Penal Code. Under the Criminal Code, punishment for forgery is 3 years, and then but when it has to do with results, an examination slip, it carries a maximum of 4 years. But in the Penal Code, it's 14 years in the North. So for a minister of innovation and technology to have been involved in innovative forgery, and then the presidency just says, we wish you well
go and sin no more. And then, coupled with the fact that before now, the president's even academic credentials had been a question in the public domain. So what that further does is that, what do you expect? After all, the president also has questions hanging over his own academic credentials, so he can't go further than that. And so that's why I said it further diminishes and destroys, that public perception. One would have expected that immediately, so that we don't say, oh, look, Nigeria has Minister for Innovative Forgery and Technology, because that's what it has become. So what the presidency should have done is to accept this resignation, but because of the gravamen of this allegation, we have informed the Inspector General of Police to take up investigation and submit a report within 2 weeks. And if found culpable, the law should take a course. But of course, not this government, not any government in Nigeria, because a lot of them are also involved in this. At the count of your hands, you can name how many, big politically exposed people have been involved, allegedly involved in forgery. All they say is, go and say no more. Once the news broke, the first thing will be to deny, address a press conference, and then the next day, we are told they have resigned. And then they go home and we don't hear of it again until the next happens. So Nigerians are not surprised, but for me, the saddest thing, because I listened to his media aides grandstanding, I listened to his press release, asking the University of Nigeria and Nsukka to restore the dignity of man. And so the only way the minister can restore his dignity, because he has children, and what will they be calling them, children or a forger. The only way he can restore his dignity is to subject himself, since he's still holding on to the fact that he did not forge, is to subject himself to a police investigation. Once that is done and they give him a clean bill, then his dignity would have been restored. But in the absence of that, don't be shocked very soon. If you parade certificate, they will ask you, hope it's not Naj. Because that is where it has gotten to. Now his name will be synonymous with forgery. And the ministry will be synonymous with forgery. That's how bad it is. And that's because it is easy. Now, unlike the days of just NTA and state television, now you have social media. So everybody now is a journalist. Everybody that has a phone is a producer. So you can't tell people what to say. Despite Section 24 of the Cybercrime Act, you can't tell people what to do as long as there are evidence credible to this allegation. And if you look at the evidence by Premium Times, it's overwhelming. The letters. And so kudos should be given to the university for having those records, because typically it's only when they go abroad that their bubbles are busted like this. But here now, we have a university that confronted him, even though somebody had been settled before to write a letter. Oh yes, he graduated from here. Yes. That is why he's asking for transcript. The university is not saying you did not attend the school. Certainly you have a transcript.
They're saying that he got admitted in 1981. They're
saying that you did not meet the requirement for graduation. You failed biology. And that in fact, throughout your student days, you were truants. You know what that means? So the documents are here now. So imagine if that man were telling his children, in my days in school, I was one of the best. In fact, the first or second position, no, they passed me. And then now your children are seeing your academic record that, in fact, the school had to write to you that you should withdraw. And then, if you look at the trajectory, and we all know, some of us, our parents attended sandwich programs now. So we know when school closed. We know when they do sandwich program. We know when they do receipt. We also were in school at this time. In 1985, I can tell you the director, because then they were not addressed as director general. The director of NYC was living in Ikeja cantonment. Everybody knows. If you ask any barrack boy, they will tell you. The man was living in Ikeja cantonment. He was director. And in 1985, NYC certificate didn't have a preface, alphabetical preface. It was just the numbers. Go check Attorney General also served in 1985, so his certificate is out there. Also, in the university, we know that in the university then, they were not ASUU strike. University resumes in September, and then by October, you have Jabito Rush. They call it October Rush, where the senior boys are looking for Jambite girls. And then school, then, you know, you have 2 sessions, 2 semesters. Last semester will be May, June. And then by June, you write, graduates will write their final exam. And if you fail, by August, September, October, by June, July, August, sandwich program will be a long holiday, sandwich program will be in place. And then you come back to school to write receipts in around August, September, depending on the school. And if you fail that receipt, the other supplementary batch for NYSC is usually around December because of those people that had receipts. So NYSC usually was around July, June, July. There was no way the man could have gone for NYSC in April because it was just one NYSC. Supplementary was in December to accommodate those who wrote receipts. So from the document, the man wrote to the school that he wants to receipt his course, biology. And after the receipt, they replied that you failed the course. And the only opportunity you have now is 1986 to receipt it in June 1986. So if you are receipting in June 1986, for the benefit of our listeners, our viewers, it is only university that writes to NYSC students, graduates for call-up. NYSC don't just call up people. So how come you are insisting that you graduated in July 1986, but that you went to NYSC in April 1980, July 1985, and you went to NYSC, that's April 1985. It's certainly you have explanation. So let me tell you.
Okay, we'll pick up from that explanation. We need to go on a very quick break. And when we come back from the break, we're still breaking down the details regarding former Minister Uche Nnaji. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're still looking into the details that led to the resignation of former Minister Jeffrey Uche Nnaji from being the Minister of Science, Innovation, Science and Technology. We're joined this morning by Mr. Libros Oshoma, legal practitioner, who is breaking this down, the details, and then we'll start to look into the legal implication of what this means. You've shared the conflict of information from his certificate, his graduation certificate, his NYSC certificate, and what was obtainable at the time. And we've also looked at what the government has said and how the government has handled this. Where does maybe presumption of innocence come into this? And I ask because there have been angles that have been raised.
Even me, I laughed at that
Wait
question.
now. No, because legally, there's still the presumption of innocence, regardless of the investigation by Premium Times magazine. There have been several angles that I've heard raised. One, that can we prove that the document was forged? Okay, if we can prove that the document was forged, was he forged by him? Was he aware of the forgery? You know, so these areas. So how do we bring in the legal right or the legal section 36 subsection 5 that gives presumption of innocence?
That is why he's not in jail, because he's still presumed innocent. That's why he's not in jail. But look, let me tell you, today, unlike before, it was just one court of law, and that's the only court. Now you have the court of law and court of public opinion. The court of law might not have tried him, but in the court of public opinion, with the documents available, his guilt as charged. Court of law does not pander to those. Court of sentiment does not pander to technicalities and all of that. It's court of public opinion, and you are. So what do you do to ensure that you prove your innocence in both courts? Because the government can be on your side and leave out, despite the overwhelming evidence in the court of public opinion, and leave out, the issues of pursuing the legal aspect of it in the court of law. And so that is why you say he's presumed innocent. Yes, he's presumed. You can't take that away from him. But that is why he's not in jail. That is why he's still walking free. That is why Bayo Onanuga can say he's wishing him well in his future endeavors. But even the question you raise, what if he was not the one that forged this document? A document might not have been forged by you, but the moment you use that document to your benefit, for your benefit, the presumption in law is that you forged it or you procured it to be used for your benefit. The presumption is that you were the forger of that document. So in this case, our Minister for Forgery Innovation and Technology needs to clear his name. I don't think that defense will avail him to say that he was not the one that forged it. He presented this document as his document, knowing fully well that he did not graduate from the university. So he forged it. And then secondly, somebody had cleared him from the DSS earlier on because he's holding on to those clearance and the initial letter, even though that letter has been rebutted by the university. Those two people, the former person that wrote that initial letter, also need to be investigated. And then those the people that cleared him in DSS, until the DSS investigate and, punish those people. Now, even if you pass through DSS vetting, people are going to say, forget it, didn't pass the vetting? And you know why it is very critical. The message we are sending is that you can forge a document, use it to become a minister, serve for 2 years, and then you are busted, you are asked to go. You have earned salaries, you have benefited from your forgery. Mind you, this was the APC governorship candidate in Enugu State in the last election. And so he's saying he's being pursued by political opponent. The question is, did you graduate in 1985? This document you paraded, because he has also admitted in an affidavit that he was not given a certificate. So the certificate you presented to the federal government, where did you get it from? Where did you get it from? If you were not given, where did you get it from? Who gave it to you? Why are you parading them, knowing fully well that you were not given a certificate? So all of these questions need to be answered. They have all been answered. Anyway, they have all been answered. But because the APC as a government, if you look at, a lot of them, those in public domain, those in political office, a lot of them have one question of forgery. The other hanging over their head and their credentials. Starting from, days of Salisu Buhari. Recently, you had Kemi Adeosun. Even the governor of Delta State also still has his own hanging, even though technicalities, the Supreme Court. So many. And if with all of this, why do you think they will even want to light the match, including the president? So why do you think they want to light the match? So that's why what they will just do quietly is wish that this would go away. And what can the public do is to keep, I doubt if the social media, conventional media can keep this in the top burner for a long time, because INEC is around the corner now, and that is gradually taking over this one. But it is for Nigerians to keep this up consistently and ask questions until the right thing is done. The same way people are asking, anytime issue of forgery comes up, people will ask about the president's credentials. So, and until it is all resolved, people will continue and consistently ask this question. And like I said, the only way the former minister can clear his name is to submit himself to a thorough investigation by the police. And the only way the presidency can also exonerate themselves that they are not encouraging criminality is to set up an inquiry into this to either corroborate or disprove what Premium Times had done. And kudos to the media consistently, putting these people on their toes. Otherwise, nobody even has time to do investigative journalism again. This took them 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
2 years.
And then I'm also kudos to the agencies for responding. NYC is known to have responded. The issue of Kemi Adeosun, despite the cover-up, they responded. On this one too, NYC had responded. He's suing the university. Why is he not suing NYC?
That's a big question. Because another thing we also have to look at very quickly is the fact that, in 1999, in the case of Salisu Buhari, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison and also given the option of paying the fine, and he paid the fine, of course, which was accepted by the then President Olusegun Obasanjo. In his case now, he has these same options which you've mentioned, the penal code and the likes. But what does this tell about the DSS, the police? because they have to do their due diligence before an appointed person is given that ministerial office. Does this show that you may take a bow should be reflected upon or should be looked into?
The DSS, for me, like they say, law in Nigeria is meant for the poor and the weak. And like African China said, poor man when steal Maggi, will sink face for crime fighter. But rich man when steal money,
we know the same face for crime fighter.
So in this case, when it's to arrest, perceive innocent people, the DSS is swift. When it's to oppress voters, you see them wear balaclavas and carry, heavy guns. But this country has for years now been enmeshed in insecurity, and we see terrorists, bandits, carrying guns to go negotiate with, political office holders, and even some persons saying the DSS, know when anytime he goes to discuss with bandits in the bush, Gumi, Sheikh Gumi. And so that same DSS that, what do you expect? So I think the new DG of DSS, who has been very professional in his utterances so far, I think this is the time for him to say, look, we are different. We're a different agency. Usually we are not heard. Our actions should speak for us. So the people that cleared this man before, they should be answering questions by now. A statement should come from DSS to say, yes, we were mentioned in all of this vetting, and these are the procedures we adopt, but with this, we're going to tighten, or we had written and we were not responded to, or we're going to investigate to find out how he was able to scale through that vetting. And then also, excuse me,
sorry,
considering the initial letter from the university written by the lecturer, the registrar, DSS to a very large extent might be excused. They can rely on that letter to say, we requested for information from the university and we got this letter to say that this person actually graduated from here. But the DSS cannot just keep quiet. There should be a statement. We shouldn't be the one doing their job for them. But that initial letter, the university should not just write to rebut it, because that's what he's holding on to now. That is this new VC that is, witch hunting him, being used by the governor. But the question remains with the overwhelming, in fact, it's like they brought out his file, his university file, and everything is in the public. So the question remains, are those information in your file, are they true? And did you receipt that biology? And at what point did you receipt it? He has not answered those questions. So until those questions are answered, and then those people, especially that former or the registrar that wrote that letter, is called to question. Tomorrow, we are going to have all of this. Forget the case of Salisu Buhari. He was sensational. At that time, we're just embracing democracy. Obasanjo also needed some low-hanging fruit to show that they meant business. But after that, what happened? It became business as usual. But you can still look back in Obasanjo's time and say, oh, it was a bit better. But subsequently, it was all just forged, and then you're given a tap on the back and asked to go and see no more. So, and the image it paints of government in Nigeria and governance is that, we encourage criminality and there are no consequences for action once you are politically exposed. And my big Egbo Oshomole once said, once you join the ruling party, they will use broom to sweep your sins away. And in the days of PDP, it was like that too.
This is a non-kinetic approach. I mean, we see when they, for example, go to
they have big grammar for him. Yes, non-kinetic approach. Yes. Let him go. And then tomorrow, what you are telling, that's why people can tell you now that education is scam.
Yeah.
So what you are telling the youth is, look, it's good to forge. But once you forge, don't remain a poor man.
These are the same people that when that young girl from Anambra's name came up, everybody has something to say.
Yes, because you see how Mesoma also was defended.
Yes.
That's the society we are in now. So, but today, the same people are defending and telling him, go and sin no more. So, it is the same thing. So, we celebrate, once you get there, just get there anyway. We will celebrate you, they'll give you chieftaincy title, and then you become a big name, and
As a society, we must hold ourselves to account. We must do better. Really must do better. Mr. Lucas Sharma, thank you for joining us this morning. We'll continue to talk about this, but we'll be moving to another conversation. When we come back, we're assessing performance of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's cabinet, one that this minister belongs to before, but no longer belongs to. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now we shall be assessing the contributions of ministers under the current administration and asking the tough questions. Are they truly fit for the portfolios that they hold? President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's cabinet reshuffle earlier this year signaled the desire to realign leadership with national priorities. But beyond the optics, has this reshuffle translated into real, meaningful impact? Are these ministers driving transformation, or are they simply just occupying seats? Joining us for the discussions this morning is Honorable Shadrach Udubai, development worker and political analyst. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Great to have you. Nigeria's ministers are tasked with steering critical sectors: education, finance, health, regional development, and more. But when we look at the outcomes, the question that comes to mind is, are these ministers delivering on their mandate? So first of all, let's get a general overview of how you think these ministers have performed post-reshuffle.
Very frankly, I'm not able to see the kind of energy I expected, because many of them have delegated their duties to play politics. For me, many of the policies and programs that they have churned out have been a mere reflection of the desperation of the president in winning elections in 2027. It is practically not anchored on the principles of good governance, neither is it anchored on the tenets of democracy. We could go around each and every one of them, but to a large extent, I have not seen the kind of political pragmatism that the man had promised in his renewed hope agenda. We could talk about the way and manner that they have carried out their duties. First of all, many of them do not even have the requisite capacity and the skill. Many of them may be able to charade elaborate CVs, but these CVs are not translated any meaningful development. And then we've seen relatively close that the policies that the man had promised in his renewed hope agenda, there was a clear dichotomy when he came into office, because his agenda has now been critically tuned towards increasing taxation, generating more revenue for federal government and the state government, while leaving the people at the mercy of nothing. And many of these things are anchored on the intention to further the policies practically impoverish the people the more, while making political leaders and masters enormously rich, big, bogus, and financially buoyant. And if you go across the sector, is it from works, you can see the humongous resources that are deployed in the construction of numerous roads and bridges across the federation, and all of these things people together, does not. When you put all this together, it does not meet the cost, because money is being thrown at problem. We see many of them wanting to siphon resources, putting money into where the project does not retain the cost, nor does it convert the cost. If you go to education, we saw the man first of all took away all the subsidies in education. After taking away the subsidies in education, school fees skyrocketed from about 30-something thousand and went to about 80-something to 100,000. And all of a sudden, he went through the back doors and introduced NER fund, a loan that people can borrow to pay their school fees and pay back after they've graduated in a country where there is no job. And the challenge for me is enormous, it's irritating. What do we go? Is it the issue of aviation? We saw a ministry that had 71 billion naira as its annual budget, engaging in a project of 712 billion. And that 712 billion renovation Mauritania Mohammed Airport did not go through scrutiny, did not go through legal process. The art was not endorsed, was practically done in one corner, being funded by a Chinese loan under the guise of subsidy. So people have argued that the ministers do not have a plan of their own, that the plan they were ought to carry out in government ought to be a mere reflection of Tinubu's hopes and aspirations, and especially in critical areas where the man appears to be interested in. But it does not materialize to anything meaningful. What we've seen is just theatrics, propaganda. Even if you talk about the Ministry of Youth, at least I was operating to meet with him the other time, the only thing that the president promised in time past was Nigeria was going to have a youth confab, and that youth confab will give an ample opportunity for the youth, irrespective of political affiliation, to come across, to engage and make meaningful contribution. The youth confab as of today is still a mere illusion, and that goes a long way to tell you that I can't tell very clearly if this government has the right peg in the right tool. To make matter worse, they brought a charlatan, I dare say, to be minister of the FCT. The man has totally led to the comatose of that sector. Whether you like it or not, just recently we also saw that many has failed. But first of all is the issue of security. yes or weekend has failed massively. Because today in Abuja, we had about 29th of September this year, a couple of weeks ago, when we had the death of Sonto Chukwumaduagu, who perhaps was gruesomely murdered in a residence in Katampe. And I dare say, this is not just an isolated tragedy. This is a mere reflection of the obtainable reality, the abysmal failure of security apparatus in the FCT. And the whole program is being treated with triviality. Today, if this gruesome murder can take place, armed robbers can kill a vibrant and ebullient journalist in broad daylight in a residence, and this happened perhaps in a upper middle class residence in Katape. What can we now say for people living in Kuji or Kubwa? I just say you can go to the streets and verify for yourself that Abuja has now become a playground for armed robbers, criminals, kidnappers, bandits who perhaps they intimidate citizens, oppress them, invade houses, dispossess citizens of their possessions, and I just say spill blood at will. Because what we are seeing is that the minister had failed abysmally in the area of insecurity. What has he engaged upon? He has engaged in media propaganda, the procommissioning of different flyovers and roads that were conducted with outrageously expensive sum that is not justifiable by any means. And all of those beautification projects ask, how can these beautification projects come across in the eyes of Abuja residents if they cannot sleep with their two eyes closed? Because the prime purpose of government is security of life and property. And the man has failed gruesomely. And if you look very clearly, you see, I never wonder, what's the meaning of a flyover to a man who has lost the loved one to kidnappers, bandits, or death, and is crying? What for use will the flyover be to him? So for me, I just believe that the abysmal failure at all corners, the man to a large extent, especially the minister, because the man had given himself a proportion that is larger than life. He has taken a form of a political demigod. At one hand, is only the juggler of the post-democratic party, depriving Nigerians the ample opportunity to enjoy a viral democracy. No, it's not a party which, to a large extent, was acclaimed to be the largest in Africa, cannot even engage in opposition politics because of international scuffles being funded and sponsored by a member of the party who has now reduced PDP to a subsidiary of the APC. And today, there's nothing you can say about yes or wiki, because even because we are on the television now, if you write an article to criticize the style of governance and policies, it should not come forth in mainstream media. All the newspaper outlets, all other media handles who to a large extent do not understand the role of the media as the fourth estate of the realm will not publish such articles. They will probably go behind him, show him what the person will publish, and we will reward them handsomely. For us, there's the issue of too much resources being afforded, too available to the man, and to a large extent, we've seen this sheer recklessness. Many people will argue to say, Abuja has never been a crime-free area. So why are you comparing, why are you blaming all of this crime and criminality on yes and weekend? But I just say, even when a major part of the northeast and the north central was overridden with banditry and Boko Haram insurgencies, Abuja was still relatively safe for most persons. Let them know now. So for us, what we see is a total breakdown of law and order. The man has not been able to. Many of them have failed woefully, from the minister, yes or wiki, to education. We saw the minister in Nigerian Affairs come out in typers to say that they shared almost 419 billion to conditional cash transfer, 25,000 to poor people in the north and some people in the north central and the south. And they are going to share another 56 billion. And I say, what kind of senselessness is this? Where exactly in the world has anybody combated poverty and poverty by putting money in the hands of citizens? For me, it's irritating. It shows the high level of cluelessness and ineptitude on the part of this government. All of the ministers, there's really no one I can say is doing well, or people will say, let us identify it.
Mr. Dubai, I mean, you've expressed your grievances, especially looking at how the performance indicator of these ministers is going. But let's look at the lists. We do have some names. Quite agree that at the start of this administration, it seems like some of the ministers, permit me to use the word, were hungry to show working. But currently, going to the third year, we're starting to see some ministries becoming so quiet that you wonder if they're actually still in existence. But permit me to ask, first of all, by reading through a few names. For instance, the Minister of Solid Minerals and Development, Honorable Dele Alake, we haven't heard anything in a long while, even though there were statements that Nigeria would recover and make some money from that particular ministry in terms of solid minerals and the likes. We were waiting for the framework, which was equally announced, but we haven't seen anything up until now, and we're in the month of September, heading towards October, heading towards December very, very soon. We also heard of the Minister of Youth Development, Honorable Yodele Olawande, there was supposed to be a youth confab in February this year. And so far, so good. There's been no talks about the youth confab anymore. It seems everything has suddenly died down. But I'm just highlighting some of these things from a few ministries. If I tend to go through all the ministries, I'm sure we do have some of their plans, their communique, which we haven't seen any blueprint up until now. But in fairness, can you highlight some of the ministers you think are doing well? I know you said the FCT minister, what concerns bridge with livelihood and safety. Some would argue with you that the FCT minister has shown working.
Mr. Project.
Exactly. I beg your pardon. So please tell us, which minister do you think is doing well?
No, you see, the truth is this, these ministers are just a mere reflection of their principle. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is genuinely not interested in good governance. What he's interested in is instituting poverty at a large scale, ensuring that Nigerian people are impoverished. That's why I went straight for the jugular, to ensure that first subsidy gone without incentive. Until date, nothing has been done to provide succor for the average Nigerian who is out there in the streets. What they tend to do is to ensure that Nigerians cannot take outside the food they need to eat, the clothes they need to wear, or the food, the shelter above their heads. That has been their primary aim and purpose. And that's why I had gone for all of the incentives that they positioned on all the incentives that Nigerian government will probably give to Nigerian people. It will be taken because he wants to ensure that more money is given to the state for the federal government. See, if you talk about I mentioned the meaning of solid mineral, when it came out, it was just a template to shake the waters. Because many of us, it's on two sides. It could be that the man, one or two of them, may have genuine intention to actually create change. But there's nothing a minister can do without the assent or consent of the president. The president has to minister to it. He has to provide the opportunity for the minister to carry out his plans, projects, and programs for it to become to see the light of day. But when this body language of the president will ask, what exactly is this policy contributing to 2027? How many votes will this gather for us? Once the policy does not anchor on getting votes for Bola Ahmed Tinubu or does not aid his political manifesto or political propaganda, he's practically shot in his side. We spoke about the minister of his I met with him sometime last year. We spoke extensively about the issue of the youth confab.
Sorry, I need to butt in quickly. I mean, in all fairness to the president, come on. I mean, let's cut in some slack. He's gotten 48 ministers in key areas. 48, the highest that Nigeria has ever seen. And you just said that if their policies does not favor or support 2027 agenda, then he may not answer. I don't know where you got that information from, except you can confirm that you've been part of the sitting, the FEC, and the executive council meetings. But in all fairness to the president, you want to respond to if that information you shared is true, that if their blueprint is not supporting 2027, he's not going to assent or answer to either of them? Is that true?
If you watch clearly, who exactly is the most powerful minister today? Who exactly is the most flagrant, the most buoyant, the most perhaps pampered and overindulged by the president? It is Yes or Wike. And what role is Yes or Wike playing that has given him this class, this friendliness? It's because the man had practically made it impossible for the People's Democratic Party to stand and produce a viable opposition to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The man is working assiduously, not for the FCT, but for the man's re-election bid. And that's why there's nothing we can say. He brags about it, that he has the ears of the president in his mouth, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. And that's why the man engages. Even the man has left policies and governance, the management of the FCT, to pursue a political charade. That's why today he's speaking recklessly on one news media on another, grandstanding, saying, I made you. And I begin to wonder, how did we get to this level where Nigerian politicians now play politics without recompense to integrity? Nigeria is not a lack of talent. Nigeria is not a lack of ambition. Nigeria is not a lack of persons with intellectual capacity to make meaningful contribution to governance. What we lack is leaders of integrity. And it's not just a leadership problem, it's a character problem. Because when a leader does not have character, a leader does not have scruples, the man will not have any idea or any regards to fairness, equity, or justice. The man to legislate does not have a ruler that will guide and direct his policies. And I say such a politician is dangerous and should be totally eroded from the scheme of things. Because when a politician engages in politics without character, he points to them to other people who are looking up to him. Hey, we can actually play this game without being true to ourselves. We can actually play this game without enduring the tenets of democracy. Today, Nigerian politicians, they don't give any damn about what the rules of the law, what the rules of law say, the tenets of democracy, or the fundamentals of good governance. Imagine a minister will come and say, we had an agreement. An agreement that is not in tandem to good governance. He will come and say, we had an agreement. When we did not agree, we had to fight. You saw what happened in River State. It was solely because of the political ambition and desperation, his battle for survival that resulted in the truncation of democracy, a long hard for democracy in River State. And the man has continued. With the PDP, it is not a different story. So when you say the ministers are doing it, because those ones who are working assiduously to garner votes or perhaps to work to ensure that their input has a direct reflection on the ballot 2027, those are the ministers that can be said to be working. Those are the ones Tinubu love. Those are the ones Tinubu draws close. Those are the ones he approves their project without thinking. Anything that's not to that, there's nothing. With the youth confab, remember how the president came on October 1st, 2024. He came out in glowing words to speak to say, oh, the youth confab will be our opportunity for us to bring the youth together. I think it was even 2020. We started the discourse 2023. We're going to bring the youth together. They're going to have an engagement for them to come and engage the government to speak about their grievances, the challenges, whatever challenges. He spoke about that. He did not see the light of day. We went to Abuja. We met with the minister on the same issue. Before we went to have a national youth dialogue. Before it was now repositioned to a youth confab. They stole the idea, created all numerous form of committees scattered everywhere, and today the program died a natural death because they do not have it in mind to bring the youth on board to listen to what their grievances are. They are not interested in what the poor have to say. What they're interested in is holding INEC by the jugular, holding the judiciary by the jugular, and ensure that the poor are impoverished. Because when these three things are in place, Tinubu cannot successfully do to Nigeria what he has done in Lagos State, whereby he has left office for 20 years, but he has continued to mastermind who becomes what, when, and how in Lagos State. Pick and choose who's president, who is governor, who is minister, who is commissioner, whatsoever. And that is what Nyesom Wike is trying to do in River State, to ensure that after he leaves River, he's able to control the soul of it. So they are just two sides of the same coin. And that's why they've married, they come together in this unholy alliance to say, oh, we're going to work together. Nyesom Wike is doing very well and all of those political charade and shenanigans. But I dare say all of this is will come to an end because the two of them the marriage cannot last for long because they are two sides of the same coin and one must rise for the other to fall. And that's what I dare say. And that's why you see we are supported in reducing River State to nothingness. But the people are not foolish, people are not cowards, bully to submission.
Honorable, if I may interject, you said that there are two sides of the same coin and one will rise for the other to fall. Who will rise and who will fall? Who will rise and who will fall?
Of course, when Tinubu emerges in 2027, if Wike desperately sacrifices all of his all to ensure Tinubu will not have to retire Wike. And I dare say, you can take my word to the bank, save it. One of them must fall for that to rise. But if Wike senses that Tinubu cannot be trusted, you will see him fight tooth and nail to kick Tinubu out of office. This thing can go somewhere in any distant time because Wike is happy now because he had used Tinubu as a weapon to fight the article. He said, I made sure he failed. And imagine a man who swore by oath, who came out in public domain to say, if I lose in this convention, God will not forgive me, I will support you. And eventually went to mobilize other governors, many of whom didn't even know their left from their right. And they supported the man is fighting for his own personal ambition. How many of those G5 governors are doing well today? How many of them are Tinubu's governor? He just used them as a feed for cannon folders and he got what he wanted. And Tinubu is looking at him, as long as this man is being useful to me, let me continue to put him in good places. But even the man now is turning to be a political liability because many of his utterances are guided, many of his press statements are totally unwarranted, unneeded, very unproductive. Because the man has really said, okay, once the strategy they are proposed, he said that we hold Labour Party for you, I will hold PDP for you. Those two persons who contested with you under the platform of the PDP and the Labour Party, they won't arise. None of them will ever get a platform in 2027. So practically, whether Nigerians like or they don't like, there will not be any opposition for them. There will not be any option in 2027. They will have no other say rather than to vote Tinubu. And that's why you see Nyesom Wike work very hard, work assiduously hard to ensure that he puts both parties on the ground. But we thank God for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who to a large extent was able to hold the group by the horn and mobilize some of supporters, and they found their way to the ADC. Today, it is ADC that just got into prominence 2 years ago. They are now doing opposition in Nigeria to show you how debased and how criminal this their political tactics and strategy are turned into.
I get your point. I mean, thanks. I know in all this conversation, it seems like you're really not happy about the FCT minister because most of your comments are tilted towards that direction. But I just want to bring us back to looking at the ministers. As a news channel, one of our creed is to ensure that we dig deep into the real stories and let Nigerians know what the truth is as regards just mere speculations. Because like our former guest who was here with us said, once people have phones, they are now journalists. Everybody starts talking and recording. But that's not who we are. Part of our tenets is to ensure that we we bring the truth to the people. Let's leave the FCT minister aside in this entire conversation. I want us to focus on the ministers. So first of all, like I did say earlier on, I think we should cut the president some slack, because as a leader, if Nigeria were to be a company, the president cannot handle everything at once. So what he's done is he has increased his cabinet, like I did say as well, the first ever 48 ministers. And a lot of these 48 ministers, he has given each and every one of them portfolios to handle. I just want you to look at it carefully, exempting the president from it, because the president will not do the job for them. They have to do their jobs. Do you think that these ministers have actually lived up to the billing? Or do you think, should the president get his second term, do you think he should still maintain these same ministers, or there needs to be another reshufflement? Because recall that the president had said, while he entered office, that he's going to have an assessment process where he would assess all the ministers, and he did it for once, and then there was a reshufflement. But we've not seen it done again. Rather, the assessment we see is the one they do on TV, where all ministers come and read through a written document of what they've done, of which many Nigerians have not seen. So do you think that these ministers merit and truly should remain as ministers if you look at the whole 48? Just a personal question.
The first thing, like I tell people, how you come into office is more important than why you come into office. Many of these persons, they are political heavyweights, political giants who had worked assiduously in the re-election bid. In the election bid of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who engaged in one form of electoral, I would dare say by practice, because I do not believe personally that the man won by the legitimate number of votes. So persons who are perceived to be political giants and masters, who can muscle votes perhaps, who will control large areas, they were the ones who were brought to Abuja to come and work as ministers. And as such, if a man, what a man does that gives him credence to access power is what the man will continue to do when he eventually gets to power. So all these persons you see there, they continue to just, maybe they will gather the needed resources so that they will go and do what made them become ministers. Because if they got into a position because they had worked, they are political heavyweight, political giants, principalities in different political corners, that's what they will now want to do to ensure the men by working as seriously hard to ensure. But if they have been brought upon on the basis of their intellectual capacity, their competence, or perhaps their ability to manage man and resources to prosperity, or maybe based on their past credentials, say, oh, this man has done this in this sector, he does not necessarily mean to be a man of APC, or perhaps maybe he was APC, but he was able to do this, he has managed his business, he has done this intervention, he has contributed to society in this way. Let's bring him on board as a minister to come and further contribute to good governance. Then we're not beginning to expect good governance from these ministers. Not the one that was brought because was able to, we checked his results, was able to win, deliver his local government, or deliver the state, or was able to make some strategic intervention during the course of election. All those is actually consequential, because once a man gets into office, he has to start thinking about how to ensure that the vehicle of politics is now used to improve the lives and welfare of the people. What we see in this generation is that when getting into office, they begin to strategize how to remain here, and not just to remain here, how to ensure we're going to determine who will remain here. So that for me, that's why Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into office, and you have to watch the body language of your principal. I dare say, many of those ministers who were kicked out of the cabinet in the last reshuffle was not because they're not performing well. Well, not because they're not doing well, but because they were not able to play the game as the minister wants, as the president wants, or perhaps how the cabinet. There's always a kitchen cabinet, a man who constitute a nucleus of government who are around the presidency. Those ones want to remain in power in perpetuity. That's what they want. It's not the job of the minister to ensure that the president remains in power, the president remains popular. And if you want to do it by the way of project, fine. But most importantly, it's by the way of the ballot. And that's why I see Yes Wike today is building houses for judges. Sorry, I'm going back to Yes Wike. You know, it's easier to judge because he appears to be like a governor in the FCT, and he has placed himself so much in public domain. All of that ministers, we are not hearing from them. They are practically working in silos. They are acting in secrecy. There's really nothing to hear of or to see from any of them. So there's really nothing to take home. Nigeria today, all the policies that's been instituted by the Nigerian ministers, they enthrone the policies, they carry them out, and they come back on TV after 2 years to explain to you why the policy is not working and why you have to be patient. And you and I know that in the next 1 year, it will be election. So that is to say, in the first 2 years of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there was no policy that was instituted that reflected in assuaging the pains or meeting the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerian people. Poverty increased, unemployment increased, insecurity increased, and I just said, So for me, they implement policies, they spend billions, they throw money at problem, and they come and explain to you why it's not working, why you should be patient. Insecurity is not patient. Insecurity does not have incubation period. The minute the Boko Haram strikes, we see the outcome. Poverty does not have incubation period. The minute the first subsidy come, Nigerians begin to scramble for what to eat. People go to work, they spend more than half of their salary to pay transport. It does not have incubation period.
What do you make?
Okay, bring in your measures to cushion the effect of our pain. They tell you it has incubation period. What a joke.
You've talked about a number of things, and of course I can agree with you that the average Nigerian does complain about not feeling the immediate effects. But the government oftentimes has said that a number of these policies will take time. The government has also been applauded for certain policies and initiatives, for example, the tax reforms. What do you make of that?
The tax reform, as I told you before, is an ample opportunity to get money out of the hands of helpless, hardworking, and struggling citizens and give it to the Nigerian federal government and the state government to increase their political coffers, to ensure that the disparity between the very poor Nigerians and the very rich Nigerian political elites continues to widen. So that when you are very, very poor, if they give you 10,000 naira on the election day, you have no option but to vote. Mobilizing people for campaign rallies becomes very easy because the people are impoverished. They know that they cannot earn this money on their own. Because if everybody knows that they can work and earn and feed, nobody will suggest themselves to be used as political talk. All those policies they are doing, those tax positions, is an attempt to further enslave the average Nigerian. So that the average Nigerian, when it's now being bullied to submission, will now have to cower to the whims and caprices of their political leaders and masters, and will not have any other option but to collect money or perhaps to do the willing of the masters. How can you take money from the prudent private sectors and hand it over to government, which you and I know wastes money recklessly? The government spends 5 million on a project. That project does not retain 5 million. That project does not convert 5 million. If the government spends 5 million on a project and you go to that project to evaluate what the project was, that project is worth about 2 million thereabout. When a private sector invests 5 million in a project, when you go there, that project will worth over 5 million, 6, 7, or 8 million, depending on the returns on the investment. But so when you now begin to take money from the private sector and put it on the government or those government public sectors, that is not to be criminal and profligate in the use of resources, then the country now begin to head for the rocks. People today are scared of investing because of the stringent tax policies. Because even the businesses are collapsing. Even though there's cheap labor, the government, people cannot set up businesses because the president is interested in squeezing the resources out of the pocket of the poor to ensure that the only people who have money to invest or to carry out legitimate business in Nigeria are those who are in big business or those who are in the oil company working hand in hand with the political elite to siphon the national resources, or those who are in full-time politics. So for me, those tax reform was done, one, to ensure that Nigeria becomes poor. Then secondly, to carry money back to Lagos State. If you watch, half of the money that has been deployed by this president's admission to the southern part of Nigeria, like 80% have gone to only one state, Lagos. Is it the 30 trillion naira coastal highway? Now money would have been enough to build another seaport, either in the south or in the southeast. But no, because he wants to ensure that Lagos remains the financial, the economic growth of Nigeria, he's turning a road so that to ease the congestion of carrying goods, import and export from Lagos to the southern part of Nigeria or to the south of the south, to make life easier, make sure that Lagos remains there. All of those policies that were related to tax reform is to ensure that Lagos
we're slowly running out of time.
Share of the money.
Mr. Dubai, we're slowly running out of time, but I'd like you to watch this video where some of the points you've made about the borrowings, monies, and so on and so forth, even though we still, some part of us still feels that, whether we like it or not, the president has done what he has to do. He will not jump and do the job for the 48 ministers who have been appointed. But let's watch this video first, and then we'll get your final reaction as we look forward to wrap up this conversation.
The economy is stabilized. Nobody is trading piece of paper for exchange rate anymore. We know the direction that we should go. We are going up. No, those who may not know will not know. Today I'm standing before you, I can brag that Nigeria is not borrowing a dime from local banks. The revenue, we have met our target of revenue for the year. We met it in August. I've reviewed this morning. non-oil. If non-oil revenue is going well, then we have no fear of whatever Trump is doing on the other side.
So final words, Mr. Dubai. There you have the president saying that no more borrowings. No more borrowings. Nigeria has met its target. And then, of course, we are getting to that level. So do you think, in as much as we're assessing the ministers, the president is giving you the positive feedbacks that this is what is going on? Can we now agree that we must exempt the president from any minister's failure to exact and carry out his duties as a core responsibility of his office?
I see no reason why we should even blame any minister, because nobody chose any minister for Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Who he voted for was Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and he personally, under close consideration, chose those persons to act as ministers. And if they are not meeting up, it is he has the requisite capacity directly headed to fire and hire at will. So for us to not say we should be blaming a minister for not performing, for me, it's irritating. It speaks to our senselessness and our poor understanding of what democracy is. We look for people who are not in a position. We blame people who are not supposed to blame, while we try to protect those who are supposed to blame. See, the video you just watched, can you say you are proud of that video? You look at your president speaking, and your president is focused only on revenue. The revenue is increasing. It's not the welfare of the average Nigerian. It's not the insecurity that is working well. It's not employment. It's not bragging about jobs he has created. It's not bragging about the health sector that we cannot treat this, we cannot treat this. It's not bragging about the international best prices. Yes, we are not struggling with this country, what Nigeria was. It's not calling metrics of development. It's calling metrics of revenue to show that they can now access money. And when he says we are no longer borrowing, Nigerians know better. I will not come here and use and describe it in a very unconventional language because I feel very irritated down in my spirit. Why not just play the video for me when he told us that if he does not give us electricity in 4 years, we'll kick him out. I hope you also have that video. So that sooner or later, when I see you also play, then he borrowed recently. Hope you also have those videos of all the times he has gone to the National Assembly to secure loans and supplementary budgets. See, we can begin to deceive ourselves. We can begin to feel as though all is well. But I beg to say, Nigerians are living life through hell on earth. We are struggling to meet the basic requirements. Today, Nigeria has the highest number of people living without electricity in the world, the giant of Africa. Nigeria is the headquarters of poverty. When Bola Ahmed Tinubu was coming to president, I thought that the man would be able to at least address some problems of insecurity, because the man positioned himself as the Jagaban, a man who does not cow to the whims and caprices of other politicians. And I say, okay, maybe perhaps since this insecurity was a northern thing, an Islamic thing, a Fulani thing, a man has been caught out from this issue to provide good solutions. What we are seeing is that it has moved from bad to worse. So we can begin to say be patient. We should be patient for these 4 years, patient for that 8 years, and patient to eternity. But the truth remains that Nigerians are living life through hell and hardship. And we cannot continue like that, no matter the eloquence of the president, of which is never eloquent.
We have to go now. Thank you very much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Welcome back. Front pages of the newspapers. We do have a public affairs analyst in-house. Mr. Dr. John joins us this morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good
to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you as
Let's
well.
go straight into it without wasting further time, because we're almost running out of time. Let's start off first with our very first newspaper right there on the screen. We're going to call for the Nigerian Tribune. Let's see what the Nigerian Tribune has in store for us. Senate seeks permanent military base in Kwara South as Army steps up action. So looking for a permanent military base. Federal government begs ASUU to shelve strike. JAM screens 176 underage candidates for admission. Exposing children to e-waste pollution can cause hypertension, according to experts. 139 million Nigerians living in poverty, according to World Bank. I'm going to start with that story. World Bank came out yesterday to make a very strong statement that has gotten a few Nigerians confused, because the same World Bank has said, you guys are in the right direction, keep going. But now they're saying, policies are good, but they're not actually trickling down the pocket of Nigerians. So they projected 4.4% economic growth by 2027, not now. They say wait. And then they put up these numbers, 139 million Nigerians living in poverty, according to World Bank. It says reform must translate into better living standards for citizens. I mean, what's your take on this? Let's start.
Okay, so the concept of leadership is the concept of change. But beyond the concept of change is the issue or the concept of change management. Now, what is change? Change is about removing the chain of habit from the neck of the people. They have done something consistently over the years, and it's called the chain of habit. So change is about removing that chain. Now, change management is about oiling the chain so that when you are pulling the chain off, you don't kill the people that are supposed to benefit from the change. Now, when you take this to governance, you discover that one of the things, when you talk about reforms, one of the things that reform does generally is to cause a bit of discomfort. But it is strategic for you to think that in the process of breaking the chain of habit, you must not kill the beneficiary of the change. That is what happened when this government started. Reform, fantastic. And the result, I am a believer of the reforms that they are doing. But of course, you know, I've repeatedly said it, that my study of economists over the world has shown that when you are breaking this chain of habit, you must pay a particular attention to the people. Why? Democracy is a government of figure and feeling. Once you see a government that relies so much on figure without considering the feeling, it may result into failure at the end of the day. And that's why when the World Bank was saying, oh, the reforms, they will not talk about the fact that the concept of democratic leadership is about the people. And when you are reforming without considering what the people think, what the people believe, or what the people are feeling, at the end of the day, the people are going to fight you back. And this is exactly what has happened. How did it get this complicated? Now, in 2017, the definition of somebody who is in poverty is $2.50 per day. But that has been reviewed in 2021. It is now $3 per day. If you take it with the current reality of maybe 1,450 naira to a dollar, you discover that that's about 4,000 something per day. By the time you put all of this money together, you times it by 30. That's going to give you about 130,000 naira per month. Now, your minimum wage in the country is 70,000. In fact, when
not implemented yet.
Not implemented yet. Yeah, okay. So implemented in some sectors and some states are still struggling. This does not even capture the woman in my village. You remember that we can shout hallelujah in commercial centers like Lagos. When you consider the feelings and the experiences of the people living in the villages, you discover that this 70,000 we are talking about, that we are even saying is not enough, really, when you get to the village, people are still struggling to get 30,000 naira per month. When you put this figure together, let's calculate it within the reality of the population of maybe 250 or 250 million people. You will see that the figure of the World Bank is also a bit generous. It does not cover the aspect of rural dwellers and the reality of what rural dwellers are facing. And this does not mean that the reforms are not going to work. This does not mean that the reforms are actually completely a failure, but with the feeling of the people, the government needs a lot of strategic intervention. Unfortunately, when you look at a nation like India, because India had gone through exactly what we're going through, and in terms of population, you can see they also have the population. But if you check the World Bank result, you will discover that India has actually moved up about 5% in terms of global poverty. They've moved up well. What did they do? They did almost the same thing that President Buhari wanted to do, which is conditional cash transfer to the people and all of that. But the difference between that is that when you say you want to transfer cash to the people, I was in Abuja, when the government tried to transfer cash to, they just went to the marketplace, picked people randomly, transfer money to them, took the remaining back to ASUU and to the ministry.
Well, how long ago was this?
That was when Buhari was there.
Okay.
Former President Buhari was there. They took the remaining back. It means that corruption is standing in the way of the effect and the benefit of our reforms. Majority of those people who come out to shout reform today are putting themselves in the process of reformation. The problem with reformation is that the people can talk about the pain, but the tragedy is that once a reformer positions himself to be a beneficiary of reforms, then the people can never get a benefit of reform.
What about the 330 billion that the president had talked about disbursing to 8 million Nigerian households?
Okay, so here is it. The data, the politics, and the process. These three things are very, very important. Number one, talk about the data. How have we come about data to ensure that the right set of people who actually need this get what we are talking about? I know about 3 people. In fact, one of them is presently in the US, who still gets benefits from government, presently in the US. And you see some people who are not supposed to be part of it. So when you mention corruption, it's not limited to the people in government. And that's why I mentioned politics in the process. There are people also who have positioned themselves to hijack the gain of government and stop it from getting to people it's supposed to get to. And these are political people. How do we ensure that a commissioner in the state does not submit lists of political people, brothers and family members to benefit from this state? This is one of the things that we must be very critical about. Beyond what the government is doing, the process and the politics are extremely important.
Just to add quickly, the Punch newspaper, the presidency debunked the World Bank statement. Yeah. They've also put out a response. A response there, it says, presidency rejects World Bank's poverty report that said Nigerians living in poverty rose from 115 million in 2023 to 139 million in 2025. And the presidency disputes data, defense reforms. World Bank urges action on inflation and poverty. So here's the presidency saying you lied. In other words, but this is the same presidency that accepted what the World Bank had said when the going was good, because World Bank, I think early this year or last year said reforms are taking shape. They're looking good. Presidency said yes. They even, we had a guest join us here where he also alluded to the World Bank statement and said, oh yes, the World Bank is right, it's taking form. But now, why are they rejecting it?
So the rejection, actually, if you look at the statement very carefully, they are not saying World Bank is lying. They are only saying we should put it in perspective. Because in reality, what they are saying is that it's not that when you make a head count, that you can make a head count of about 10 million people that have entered poverty, that have fallen under the poverty line. What they are saying is that even those, indirectly, what they are saying is that even those any 70,000 per month,
are still
the World Bank has classified them as poor people. And the complication in that also is the fact that when the World Bank is doing all of this analysis, when they are looking at the purchasing power parity, that's the power of nations when they compare their productivity and their sustainability and their purchasing power, Nigeria falls downward. Now they also look at the reality of the necessities of life, food, clothing, and shelter. Today, you need prayer point to get accommodation in Lagos.
Oh, yes.
All of those things are put together to arrive at this. So when you're talking about reform, usually when you concentrate on one, you may not be able to get the expected result. For example, as we speak now, there's no clear-cut housing regulation that prevents people from not doing some certain things. So somebody can wake up, a house built by his grandfather who died, erected by his father who has already passed. He can decide to say, oh, I just bought cement for 10,400. And as a result of that, I'm moving this out from 200,000 to 1 million. There's no regulation. All of these, our little actions, contribute to what World Bank is saying. It's not just a practical of, oh, the government is this, the government is that. Our little action, unregulated action. In fact, India went to the point of saying that if you enter the supermarket with a student ID, you are going to get some products and produce in a certain price. That's the way to go to fight poverty, because they know that somebody in school may not have the kind of money people that are working hard. So all of those control will lead to their economic growth, and this poverty that we are talking about is also of perception. Perception. The government is not concerned about the perception. They are only concerned about, oh, this is what we believe in. And input also is necessary from all stakeholders. For me, I think government must do more in the area of agri. They must do more in the area of housing. They must do more in the area of controlling where people live. By the time they do all of these things, together.
Sorry to bother, we just had a review of some of the ministers, assessing them. And we also have a Minister of Housing. We also have Minister of Agriculture. I don't know, what's your assessment on this so far? Do you think they are living up to the billing?
Okay, so for agriculture, 2 years may not be enough for you to actually say, because beyond policy, executive is supposed to pursue policy to execution. 2 years may not be, but the roadmap they have, really fantastic roadmap. I have peeped into it. But my problem is that, you see, for housing, it is still the same old template. Lagos had a fantastic idea of the Lagos home. I don't know whether I've told you a story about it. I'd applied 2 times. Before they commission those homes, they are finished. When you now trace it further, you discover that it's falling back to the people in government. And when you have this same template, it means that people will need to play politics for everything, to the point that those who are supposed to benefit from it can never benefit from it. It's the same template that the federal government is doing. I understand the fact that they want to have housing in 774 local government and all of that. But again, we must reduce politicizing policy of government that is supposed to reduce poverty. So when you have this template that, oh, I'm just going to build, building is not just building. Building is majorly for regulation. For example, government has an estate here, and this estate is a standard estate. 2-bedroom flat should be along this line, and every landlord will queue behind that fact. But once you don't build to regulate, once you build in the name of politics, so that I will give to my neighbor and all of that, all of this are the things.
The landlords will ask you that, is it government that is buying cement for them? Or is it government that is, you know, is the government not the one selling the land to them?
It's part of the mentality that we all need to fight. You see, making a nation work is beyond. One of the reasons why they say that a lot is because government had repeatedly told them to tighten their belt, while those in government are living in opulence. If you actually lead by example and you say this is what you want to do, people will line up. We need this Nigeria to work. And I'm sure that when leaders lead by example, followership is going to do same.
Okay, I want us to quickly touch on the Punch newspaper. I'll take a few headlines and then we'll get into the stories. Presidency rejects World Bank's poverty report. Joe had read that earlier. Strike. Federal government ASUU in high-stakes talks. Fraud. Interpol arrests wanted Nigerian in Argentina. Labour Party senators shrink to 4 as Chukwu joins APC. Wow. Woo. Dangote Refinery engineers on war path over redeployment. Nigeria lost $10 billion to Northeast conflict, according to the United Nations. Opposition slams governors the state's IGR soars by 50%. Christian killings, federal government disagrees as Khan backs U.S. senator. Let's talk about that.
Okay. So I think there's the need for us to continue to have conversation around our security. And I've said it before. The complication is, when you talk about security, it's not the absence of crime. It is the response to crime that determines whether a community is safe or not. The way we respond to crime in this part is not good enough. And it's because we have an old template about response to crime, and it starts with security. Right. Let's start with the personnel. When you see any personnel today, either police or anything, you discover that they have a 40 personnel. My friend was telling me, we were gisting about it, and I said, an officer in the police, for example, with all modesty, my driver earns more than an ASP in the police. And that's the truth. And now you will now discover that we have got this template, and what have we done with the template? Any organization, virtually every organization that you enter today, you discover that the least paid person in the organization are the security. It's a 40 template that I don't know how we got that, but we have adopted that. And as long as we have that, that will open door for corruption. And I've said it repeatedly that we are not fighting banditry in military. What they are fighting in the military now is corruption. And the problem is not with the gun-carrying member of the military. It is with the money-carrying member of the military. You have seen now, my friend was kidnapped, the national president of Afenifere Youth Wing.
Yeah.
And after he was released, he had told the story publicly. Because they knew it's a big one among, they kidnapped a lot of them, they knew it's the biggest among them. So they made him do the coordination of how ransom would be paid. But this is what they discovered. They discovered that for those 3 or 4 points where ransom was taken, it was very close to military checkpoints. He said that openly. And you will discover that a lot of people have been saying it, that there's a connect between the level of insecurity, the military, and the community. For us to be able to solve the problem of insecurity, we must, number one, attend to the welfare of these people. We must engage our community. You saw what happened in Kwara.
Yeah.
Kwara community leaders. And it was because we do not have appropriate response to crime. Locals are now buying into the crime franchise. They want to kidnap now in the name of Fulani herders. I told you another story maybe the last time I came here of the ransom that was paid in Ibadan. It was in the city. This is the reality of the time. So what are we saying in essence? Beyond saying that we've spent 10 billion, there must be the will of government. It's more important than the fate of the people. In fact, the will of government is more important than the perception of the public. So when the government shows enough will to be able to tackle this thing, you will see that within days, insecure. And this idea of, I said it the last time I came here, that once it's 2 years to the election, the level of criminality in the community will increase. We cannot continue to recycle these things. Yeah. July this year, Nuhu Ribadu, the NSA, had come out to say that before their government came on board, 47,000 Nigerians were killed as a result of insecurity in Nigeria. We can't continue to wish people to rest in peace when we know they didn't die in peace. And that must stop.
Well, I'm sure if we continue here, time will fail us as we are gradually out of time to highlight some of these very key stories. But let's take this Nigeria very quickly, 30 seconds, just to wrap it up, because we need to touch this Nigeria, the paper there. Senate angry over Kwara killing, summons IGP, defense and army chiefs. Lawmakers decry carnages, 142 kidnappings in 12 months. Demand permanent military base, accuse security agencies of reactive response. You just touched on this already, funnily. You just touched on that already. You highlighted some of the challenges and so on. 500 illegal miners arrested, 270 facing prosecution. NSCDC now scrutinizes Tinubu's $2.3 billion loan. Economists warn Nigeria sinking deeper into fiscal trap as debt servicing swallows national revenue. Your thoughts on that? Okay, so are we going to talk about the loan? Anyone. Okay, so economists warn Nigeria sinking deeper into fiscal trap and debt servicing. I think we still have the capacity to pay our debt, and we must make that very clear. But here's the fear. The fear is that how are we sure that we are borrowing for projects, not for pockets? That's why a lot of people are coming out. With the capacity of, if you put our GDP with our debt ratio, we still have the capacity. That is it may not sound good enough, but that's the fact. But again, how do we ensure? Because if you compare our project with the reality of projects elsewhere in West Africa, our projects are the most expensive. And at the end of the day, you look at some of these projects, you want to cry. I took by road, I was in a place called Ilesha in Osun State some weeks back. And when I saw the project they were executing, I felt like calling all the contractors together and beating the head. It was like a shrine. They were building roads, so you know the way they will hit asphalt, they will hit it with pan, and they will come and pour it on a major road. And at the end of the day, you collect your money. We can't do Nigeria like this. So the fear of the people is not, the fear of the people is that this money that we are just mentioning, where are they going to? It's not that Nigeria does not have capacity to borrow more economically. But here is that when you are borrowing for progress, please do not allow the money to enter people's pockets. But can they really stop that? Because these are the same people that will say before the money gets to them, there's a lot of backlog here and there. Our own kind of corruption is illegal corruption. What legal corruption is, from the time you are drafting your budget, you have made provision for it. You have made provision for stealing within the budget. So you've padded it. Yes, it becomes illegal. For example, this cup is sold for 2 naira, and I've written it in the budget that I want is 6 naira.
So it's a legal corruption. So from the destiny of any nation is in their fiscal document, which is called the budget. So we have to go back to the budget and look at it very carefully and say, okay, how is this cup 7 naira for God's sake?
But experts have also looked at it carefully. They've said there's some repetition in the budget, the fiscal budget, every year.
I was part of those who
exactly.
Because I looked at for 3 years consecutively, cutlery was coming up.
There.
For example, in ASUU. Then I was wondering, this party must be an unending party.
Yes.
It's looking like...
it's a party that happens every year.
Like,
cutlery is always...
and these are sensitive matter. It makes your government look very unserious. It's not about administration. I was in Italy, and I went for a public discourse on the perception of nation. You see, when the professor was talking, I was almost crying, because all of these little things are the ones that come together to tell of the power, the perception, and the future capacity of your nation. When you continue to put cutlery, who will see you as a serious-minded people? And all of these things happen because Nigerians don't look at the document to critique it. And once Nigerians begin to look at it, the government say they are opposition. And you remember, Obasanjo has mentioned it before, that opposition in Africa is about enmity.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning to review the papers. And to our virtual audience, I was trying to see if I can take some comments on YouTube before we wrap up the show, but unfortunately it doesn't look like we have enough time for that. But thank you for being a part of the show. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. I need to actually take this comment. Someone saying this man is speaking so much sense. That's Idaibi Ibisiki Anichinedu
Brown.
Anichinedu, I need to clarify this. He says, another truthful and fearless analyst, Dr. You soon be blacklisted from appearing on television. Just like what happened to Ikechukwu Amechi, who talks without minding whose ox is God. Anichinedu, we have told you that Ikechukwu Amechi is on holiday.
He's on holiday. He will
soon be back.
Have no fear.
He went to spend some time to rest, like every normal person does from time to time. Ikechukwu Amechi was not blacklisted. He's still one of our analysts. Thank you so much for joining us.
You need power and you need to eat. That's why you just sip coffee, just to keep going.
See something, it's a very funny place that we are in. Once you see something that is good about the government, once you say it now, oh, you are pro-government.
You are collected money. All right, we'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. Conversations continue on YouTube. We're streaming live, News Central TV. Please continue to engage with our content. My name is Olive MOD.
My name is Joe Hansen. He's Mr. Dr. John. We'll see you tomorrow, bright and early. More programs coming your way. Au revoir.